I think since we're in coal country, we should just fill the coal bins back up, put the coal boilers back in, and we're all set.
When we do a state project, we have to do a study, a coal study that takes about $5,000 worth of engineering to prove that natural gas is less expensive.
Yeah.
When we don't have to put the coal bin in.
And Terry, as somebody who supplies the mines, I would vote for going back to coal.
Anyway, I just tried to lighten the conversation here a little bit, but we're going to go off schedule here a little bit. We're going to go to number 6 first. We have a company on here that's going to go over a proposal to place solar panels throughout our district at our buildings. They've done quite a bit of analysis and evaluation, and we've narrowed it down to where we wanted to present it tonight. So we've already had a meeting or two with them in preparation for this meeting. So at this point, Seth, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you. And speaking is Seth Berry from Solar Renewable Energy, LLC. We're out of Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. I do have a couple slide PowerPoint that we walk through with some of the board members, and I'll put that up on the screen if everybody has access to see that.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, Seth. And I wanted to cover this, or we wanted to cover this one first because, depending upon the interest in pursuing this proposal, does have an impact on our electric bill in the future. So it could impact our decision on which HVAC system we choose, both at Eisenhower and at East Pike. So go ahead, Seth.
Just wanted to confirm, can you guys see the PowerPoint with 4 pictures?
Yes.
So again, our logo is in the bottom right corner. Again, the company is called Solar Renewable Energy, LLC. Top left corner is our office. It's in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. It was our first solar project, which you can see on top of the rooftop there. And then we wanted to provide a couple of representative or similar peer group projects that we did historically in a very similar structure to what we do here for Indiana Area School District. The top right it's called Tamaqua Area School District. It's in Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. It was a 2-site ground mount that offset about 100% of the school district's usage. The bottom right picture is Midwest School District. It's in Middleburg, Pennsylvania. That offset also about 100% of the school's annual usage. Then the bottom left is a roof mount project for Pottsville Area School District, which was in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. All 3 of these are set up through a very similar structure to what we'll talk about with you tonight. That structure is called a Power Service Agreement, or a PSA. And we'll dive into that in a second. Okay. Here's an executive summary on the solar proposal. What we'd be looking to do with the school district, it's a private-public partnership. We call that a Power Service Agreement, or a PSA. Real high level, what that means is we would own the system. So as SRE, being we, is a for-profit entity. And then the school district would reap the benefits of the solar array. In exchange for that agreement, the school would make a monthly payment through this Power Service Agreement. This is a very common strategy of doing this private-public partnership. That's because there's federal tax incentives that coincide with a solar project. In order to monetize those, you do need to be a for-profit entity, hence why this private-public partnership is very common. As far as the system size, we're looking at right now a 2,878 kW solar project, the first bullet. That's comprehensive of the roof and ground mounts that are shown below. Next couple bullets, you can see a few different roof mounts that are located at the high school, at the East Pike Elementary, Ben Franklin Elementary. Then there's 2 ground mounts that are currently being proposed at Ben Franklin Elementary and East Pike Elementary. The 2 that were not included as part of the original scope for basically this first project was the junior high, and that was due to the roof being on the old side. We'd encourage you to replace it prior to solar being installed. And then the second one was Eisenhower Elementary, was also excluded. just due to there's construction that's supposed to be done in about a little over 2 years from now. So we can certainly incorporate both of those into like a phase 2 type project, but that's just your general scope. Aggregating all of those up, we're looking at offsetting about 85% of the school district annual electricity consumption. As far as the market, kind of why solar now? Obviously, solar has been around for quite some time, but there's some factors that have changed that have made it more enticing. The first one is Pennsylvania electric utility rates have significantly increased over the last 24 months, and more specifically over the last 12 months. A lot of that's all being driven by the COVID supply chain related aspects and some of the other international aspects like the Russia-Ukraine wars and other aspects. But we've seen electric rates nearly double in the last 24 months, which for somebody like the school district, that could be quite expensive if you don't have another alternative. So right now, solar has been a very increasingly hot topic for a lot of big consumers of power. A couple other factors, solar construction costs have become more cost efficient over the last 5 years. So it's all kind of, all the planets are kind of lining up here that it makes sense. You have an easy way to save cost and you're able to build this system efficiently. Some other items that have been around for some time that still stand and make solar effective is there's the federal tax incentives, which again, that's the reason for this private-public partnership that we would monetize as the for-profit or the owner of the system. And we basically pass those benefits on to the school district through this PSA structure. And then the last incentive that's been around that's pretty lucrative on the state level is called an SREC, or a solar renewable energy credit. And think of those like solar dividends. Basically, as your system produces power, you generate these SRECs and you can actually sell them into a supply demand driven exchange with the current price of an SREC in the $40 range, which is about 4 cents a kilowatt hour.
Seth, this is Walter Schroth. I have a question before you leave this slide. On your bullet point 1, you're dealing with just actual rates that have risen in the last 24 months, or have you factored in the impact of Reggie, which appears to be going through at this point?
Yeah, that first slide, and there's a graph that'll be coming either the next slide or 2 slides from now. That is based off of the current price to compares at the utility level. So that is actual electric charges posted by the utilities.
Not future.
That does not take into account future price increases that Reggie may or may not have on electric. But that's purely the utilities, what's called the default rate or price to compare.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that slide, or I can go to the next one?
Well, I think you were going to finish up on that last bullet talking about the SREC.
Sure. So the SRECs, again, that is a state system. So it's mandated by the state legislation that the utilities, the suppliers, they have to buy SRECs from either internally, they have to have them produced internally through their own systems, or they can go out and buy them from a third party, such as a system that's owned by like a school district. So there's a regulation that kind of sets the bar for these SREC prices. And right now, a PA SREC is about $40, or equating that into kilowatt hour terms, which is how all of the energy industry is quoted. That's 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Just to kind of put that in perspective, a PA SREC, again, at $40 is pretty undervalued compared to some of the other states. A good common aspect to compare it to is New Jersey. Their SREC program is currently trading at about 150. Obviously, as the SREC goes higher, that means it's more valuable to the school district. Wow. So the state of Pennsylvania is hoping that there will be a more futuristic solar proposal getting proposed and hopefully executed. But what we're doing in the rest of this presentation is basing on current market conditions.
And with that last bullet, the SRECs, there is a risk that a legislature could change that legislation?
Correct. Correct. There could be some changes. I would say more likely than not, it would be either a neutral or a favorable movement. PA SRECs tend to be trading very low compared to other markets. Pennsylvania is actually pretty behind the eight ball as far as the state in terms of solar. Only about 0.5% of all of Pennsylvania's energy is produced by solar inside the state. When you compare that 0.5% to someone like New Jersey, they're up at over 5% currently. So if anything, it's likely a more progressive movement rather than a regression.
So worst case scenario though, say the legislature would change it to where that goes away. What happens to our PSA?
Yeah, so we can, that's a pretty common request from our clients of, hey, can we play around with some of the variables that are in the solar project? So one of the attachments we have is an Excel file. If you want to play around with what happens if an SREC price devalues after the first 5 years, first 10 years, we can walk through that and show what that would mean to the school district. And that is something we do behind the scenes to make sure this cash flows in a positive manner for our clients, in this case, the school district.
Okay.
And here's a graph showing that electric cost. So this is the Penelec price to compare chart. You can see it starts January 1st, 2020 through the most recent increase that just got announced last week. Over the last 24 months, you have seen Penelec price to compare has increased by about 121%. And what that really means as far as the school district, I know you're currently on an energy supply contract, but let's say the supply contract expired, you would likely be paying a much, much higher price than what you were previously paying. The one thing the school does have the benefit of is you do have an energy supply contract that's locked in for a couple of years, but we can talk through that if the school would like to go forward with this project. Here's a little bit more information about solar renewable energy. The company, we've been around since 2010. We've developed over 250 commercial solar projects. Included in that were the 3 schools that were on the first page. There's an asset value listed there. We're over 250 million in project cost. We're producing about 75 million kilowatt hours or 75 megawatt hours annually through our portfolios that we've produced. Most of our portfolio is in Pennsylvania, but we have done solar installations in 8 states, with New Jersey being our second most common. We are also actively trading in the SREC market. Assuming the school would like to move forward with the project, we would help you sell your SRECs and translate those into the cash value the market would pay for those. And one other thing that differentiates us is we would be involved on the front end, being with the construction of the project. So you'd be dealing with us through construction. And then we also would be the owners of the project, financing this and going into this long-term arrangement with the school district. Now jumping into some of the site-by-site specifics. Here's the first one. This is Ben Franklin Elementary. This one we are proposing a roof mount, and we are also proposing a ground mount on the southern location. There's I believe it's a creek that has kind of made a lot of the lands there more in the wetland floodplain sort of aspect. So we have panels placed in that open field that seems to be potentially underutilized. When we do these layouts, we use a system called Helioscope. That's a solar simulation software, and what that allows us to do is, depending on what the geographic or the latitude of the site, we're able to make some assumptions, put some panels down like on the roof as an example, where we can actually estimate how much production the system will have on an annual basis. So all of these layouts were run through Helioscope, and they were all generated to create how much this system would produce. As far as your total system size, this is about 39% of the total solar proposed as part of the phase 1. Same aspect for the high school. This is about 26%, and this is just a roof mount proposal. One thing I will say about the roof mounts as well, common question that we get from any type of client, these would be what are called ballasted solar arrays. So what that means is there's no penetration into the roof. Basically, what you would see building up from the roof is typically roofs are either EPDM or TPO rubber roofs. we would put down what's called a slip sheet, which would be the same type of material that the roof that's already existing is, to give one more layer of protection. Then we would put the roof racking down for the solar array. And then it would basically be weighed down by ballast block or concrete block. Just it's essentially weighed down through block rather than penetrations into the roof, which is a lot of the concerns people also have is roof warranties. Because of that, we work closely with the roof warranty companies and make sure the roof warranty is not voided and is maintained as is. Moving on to a couple more. Here's the East Pike Elementary. This is a proposed roof mount and ground mount location. As you can see, the ground mount's closer to the main entrance. And the two of them together aggregate to about 35% of the total solar proposed. Now, as part of, depending on how quickly the school would like to move forward, we would propose potentially doing 2 phases. A first phase covering anything that's in play that's ready right now. And then a second phase, if there's still appetite to increase the amount of solar, which is quite common. We just completed a second phase for a sewer authority in State College this past year, where they did a phase 1 in 2018 and then a phase 2 in 2021. But as part of the phase 2s, we would encourage the junior high to be considered. The reason it's not included right now is I believe the roof is currently about 20 years old, so it's nearing the end of its useful life. So we would recommend that roof gets replaced prior to solar getting installed on it. But at this point, I wouldn't recommend a roof replacement until you're starting to have roof leak issues. As far as the system size, you're looking at about 12% of the entire portfolio. And then the second site that would be considered as potentially a second phase 2 option would be the Ike Elementary. And the reason for that is there's a renovation that's occurring in the next 2.5 years that we think it makes more sense to do that all at aggregate all at one time. And again, that one's about 11% of the entire portfolio size. Now,
So Seth, before you go on, was there any reason why the maintenance building wasn't considered for rooftop mounts?
That'd be the bus barn, Seth.
yeah, the bus garage location, we can certainly, we have looked at that already a little bit. There isn't that much energy usage at the bus garage location. If you would like to have a roof mount inclusive of that, we certainly can include that. I would put the bus garage as probably one of the, obviously we're trying to build this cost effectively to make sure this is financially attractive. I think the bus garage would probably be one of the lowest ones I'd put on there. The reason for that is the usage is quite small. So what you'd need to do is you'd have to upgrade the services there, which could be cost ineffective, but that's something we can also validate through a site visit.
Okay, Seth, so my purpose in asking that is I'm not overly excited about where your ground mounts in front of the East Pike are located. And so given that the bus garage is not quite next door, whether some of those ground mounts at East Pike couldn't be mounted on the bus garage's roof, you know, and if this is something about utilization by building or by property based on the number of panels you put on each property, is there some way to combine those to kind of take advantage of that?
Yeah, we can take a look at it. Part of, I'd have to zoom out to see kind of how far away we're talking, but as part of the effectiveness to make solar financially attractive, you want to make the systems as centralized as possible. So if you can make like one big system versus a bunch of small systems, that's one benefit. Another one would be trying to cut down the distance from the electric room, because we're going to have to tie these in. The term's called behind the meter. So what that means is the school would actually benefit. So in this case, East Pike Elementary would actually benefit first on the electricity that's produced. And that would be seen through a lower utility bill that month. And then any excess power that happens throughout that month would actually get, there's another term called virtual net metering. where we can virtually send the excess kilowatt hours over to a second site. So you could, like, for example, send the virtual excess production over to like the bus garage. And that's
Yeah,
all done. That's all done through a process with the utility where they do handle your monthly billings.
Yeah, I was thinking about just the opposite. If the bus garage produced more power than what it used, then the rest of that could be used at another building, i.e. this building, because of its close geographic proximity.
Sure. And a lot of times, like how this typically unfolds is obviously we've not been to the site yet to kind of look at all of the electric rooms and do the more concrete, finite details on this. But that's something we could look at the electric services, make sure there's like 3-phase power there, see how far we are away from other locations. And we can give you a final price based on the site visit, which we'd have our site team come do that. That's something we could consider as part of that aspect.
Seth, at the bus garage, there's a hillside to the north of it that isn't paved, doesn't have buses on it. We own back to the park. So there's a strip of ground there that's pretty good size.
Okay.
And you're less than a quarter mile away from East Pike.
Okay.
So it might be a way to do the ground mount on that hillside.
Tom, I'm thrilled. The other thing, Seth, when I saw the one over at Ben Franklin, the ground mount that you had there, one of the questions that came to me was, okay, what happens if we need that ground at some other point in time? We build a mega school, or we, do something else. Cinda's looking at me; she's staring daggers. Okay, but
Or stop, because everything except home plate is in the floodplain.
Yeah.
So that's it's unbuildable. Now you could do track on it. You can do things like that, but you cannot put a building on it.
well, the question that I'm basically asking is, we're going to commit a certain amount of our ground to this, whether it's at Ben Franklin or a different location. And what happens if we need that ground for some other purpose? Are there provisions in this agreement or lease, whatever this is, that allows us to take that ground back for our utilization for education purposes?
Sure. So the structure we'd be executing with the school district, again, that contract's called a power service agreement or a PSA. The underlying guts to the technical of the contract is it's a 28-year agreement, but there are early buyout options for the school that would exist as soon as year 6. The reason it's year 6 and not year 2, for example, is, as I mentioned earlier on the call, there's these federal tax incentives and depreciation benefits that we take advantage as part of our return. We need to hold the project for at least 5 years to monetize those effectively and avoid having the IRS come after us for tax recapture issues.
No, I understand that. And as fast as this district moves, 6 years would be plenty of time to plan something like that.
So
Yeah, we wanted to show, the maximum amount of arrays that we could place. We don't have to put any ground mounts if that's what, the flavor is. But
I'm not,
And no, you bring up some good points. I'm just throwing that out, that this is just one schematic option.
Yeah, the advantage to the ground mounts is that we don't have to replace the dirt. And on a roof mount, these things are going to last longer than a roof will.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some cost in there to disassemble and put back on. The thing, though, that right now, this illustration, we're about 85% of our needs. If you took a look at, that's with Eisenhower at 30,000 feet, not 60,000 feet, and that's without the junior high and without the space behind it.
correct.
Behind the bus garage, we can potentially get to 100% and reduce some of the ground mounts at Ben Franklin and East Pike. But to do that, they need to come and do the studies, and we have to start progressing down this path. So I think we need to move on with the rest of the presentation.
Yes.
okay.
Seth, finish up.
I love it.
The last thing I would just say about the ground mounts, just a little bit, I described how the roof mounts work. The ground mounts would be they're post-driven I-beams. So basically, it's a bunch of steel, kind of like similar to like a guardrail that'd be going in. The panels would sit about 3 foot high off the ground. And they'd typically be tilted at like a 20-degree height or 20 degree incline. So again, the low end would be about 3 foot, the high end would be about 8 feet. But they, if let's say we did a ground mount and the school bought the system out, and then year 20 you wanted to take them out, it's pretty easy to just pull the I-beams out. It's relatively easy removal of a ground mount system. So finishing, the slide that we were on was just kind of talking a little bit about the structure. I'll go through that quickly. Again, the system, we would own it up front. So we would be responsible for all the financing costs to cover the engineering, the installation, the equipment. Typically, the only cost the school district would see up front would be any type of solicitor review of the contract. Otherwise, there's no requirements of financing of any kind to the school. So basically then after that, what you would see is you would make a fixed monthly payment under this power service agreement structure. Think of that kind of like a rent or a lease payment that would be made to the solar entity or solar owner, which would be us. And in exchange for that, you're going to receive two main benefits. One is going to be the reduced utility bill with Penelec. And then the other one is going to be these SRECs or the SREC income, which we'd help monetize that for you. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Again, you have the early buyout. You could buy it in year 6, 10, 15. But if you choose never to buy it out, it'd be a 28-year agreement. And then after the year 28, we could either remove the system, we could extend it for another 5 years, or the school could buy it for a very immaterial amount of money. Any questions on that structure? We do have an Excel file, which probably won't get to tonight, but that's what correlates with this structure.
And at year 28, you would remove it at no cost to us?
Yeah, if the school would like us to remove the system, if you don't see any value in the, so the panels are warranted for 30 years, so I think there would still be some value there, but if for whatever reason you wanted it removed, that would be our responsibility to remove it. And
then any upgrades to our electrical services would be at whose cost?
We would cover that. So that we refer to that as an interconnection upgrade fee. That's one thing that's a little bit out of our control. So what we typically put in the contracts between the school district and us is we would put in an amount that we are financing up to. If it goes over that amount, which again, because Penelec can come back and tell us it's $25,000, or they could tell us it's $1 million. We won't know until they do the studies. If it comes back too high, both parties can renegotiate. Is essentially how it would be written in the contract. Again, at that point, though, the school would have, if we had to walk away for whatever reason, the school would have no cost into that. That would be all of our responsibilities for the engineering.
For the engineering and the physical work?
So the utility upgrade fees, that would all be done at the beginning of the process. So we wouldn't have done any of the installation at that point. That would be the step one we would do. As far as determining what the utility would require as far as upgrades or utility enforcements.
This is Christy Kramer from CJL Engineering. Were those electrical upgrade costs included in like the cash flow spreadsheet that was worked out, or not yet?
They were included in there. I can confirm what we had in there. I think it was $250,000.
Okay.
So, Chrissy, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things, and I realize this is just a preliminary briefing for our benefit tonight to talk about the entire concept of how this works. But if we go down this path a little bit further, I'd like to have Jared take a look at that fee we are paying versus the utilities and how that money actually exchanges hands, so that we just have a good understanding of how the finances work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, Seth, I noticed that, well, at least the version of the spreadsheet I saw, it listed the 26% investment tax credit. I was wondering if this installation happened in 2023, when it reduces down to 22%, does that change any of the numbers in the spreadsheet, or is that just kind of somewhere behind the scenes?
Yeah, Chrissy, good comment. So Obviously, one of the big drivers in this is the federal tax incentive. As part of this, we are assuming we'd be able to monetize the 26% investment tax credit. So under current policy right now, the 26% only applies through 2022. So assuming that doesn't mean we have to get the project done in 2022. But what we'd have to do is we'd have to at least start, which means if we had a contract towards, let's say, even Q4 this year, we could actually go order some of the solar panels to satisfy the terms called safe harboring. So we would actually safe harbor the 26% ITC. If we're not able to accomplish that, it's possible that the Biden administration extends the 26% ITC. If they don't, it would reduce down to 22%. We would have to reprice, given the 22% isn't as lucrative as the 26.
Hey, Seth, this might be a stupid question too, but is there like a certain amount of like sunlight you need to have this be cost effective? I mean, obviously other school districts in Pennsylvania are doing it, but we live in a region where we cannot have sun for like 2 weeks. Is that, again, this might be a stupid question, but you need a certain amount. What's the study show how much sunlight you actually need? Or can you have 3-4 days of sun in a row and that can make up for 2 weeks not having sun?
Yeah, what you'll see, so solar has more of like a bell curve shape to it, both in the day, but also throughout the year. So even like a July very sunny day might still produce more than like twice like what a very sunny day in December or January would. So all of that, like what you'll see is some days, even like in July, you're going to have very poor, rainy, cloud-covered production days. But then you may have a couple days in a row that are very perfect, sun production days. All of that gets taken into account through those simulation softwares, all those layouts I'd shown through that system called Helioscope. It basically accounts for, plopping the same system in Indiana School District versus somewhere like Tamaqua School District. So it accounts for that there's going to be probably a 5 to 10% delta in production on Eastern PA versus Western PA.
Thank you.
You said you also assist in helping with like selling the RECs. Is it possible to sell partial RECs, or do you have to sell them by the 1 megawatt commodity? Like, in the spreadsheet, I noticed it was by the kilowatt hour. So I was wondering if it just, if it was all bundled together like that, or if it has to be in whole megawatt hours.
Sure. Yep. Another good question. So one benefit to selling your SRECs through, in this role, we would be what's called an aggregator. So we aggregate SRECs for about probably 50 different clients. And like those school districts I'd shown on the first slide, those are ones that we aggregate SRECs for. In order to get the best price for your SREC, typically you want to sell them in a minimum of 1,000 SRECs at a time. Or said differently, 1 megawatt worth of SRECs. So let's say the school in January, February, and March only produces 300 or 500 SRECs. The benefit to using somebody like us is for the SREC sale process, we would accumulate your SRECs and other parties' SRECs and basically monetize those kind of in a bucket. Typically, you get the best price when you can sell them in larger intervals, such as 1,000 or 5,000 at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Christy, you have any other questions?
Yeah, sorry, I'm dominating the questions here. I did have a question on the avoided cost of electricity, because the tariff that we were looking at had a price to compare, at least for like the elementary school level, where it's a general service medium rate. It looked like the price to compare was around 8 cents per kilowatt hour until May. So I wasn't sure what, maybe what service type you were looking at for the 11-cent price to compare for Penelec.
Yeah, so here's the Penelec, and Christy, I think you're exactly correct that here you can see the historical price compare since early 2020. You had mentioned somewhere in the 8 cent range. That's where you can see this. It's been pretty flat since September of 2021 through March of 2022 or April of 2022. Penelec just came out with a rate about 2 weeks ago, where the price compare jumped from the 8 cent range to closer to 11 cents. So that's been a pretty common thing. All of the First Energy sites, which Penelec is one of those, there's about 5 utilities in PA. They all announced that their rates went a lot more expensive. There's been
Does
some
that-
market updates on that, but
Does it go down like quarterly at all? Like, do you imagine that that'll go down in the winter again when cooling season's over, or do you think it'll stay kind of up there at 11 indefinitely?
it really depends on how. I mean, it like anything else, like construction wise, are we anticipating, the steel, the gas prices, all that stuff? Are we anticipating all of that to come down anytime soon? Are we going to start leveling off at this price? I know there's a lot of people calling that they're expecting utility rates to increase again just because of some of the COVID supply chain issues and international war issues. But I would say generally there is a little bit of seasonality, as you can see kind of with the curve. I mean, obviously we didn't have too much supply chain issues in electric until about a year ago. So you've seen a pretty skyrocketed approach here since middle of 2021. But obviously that's the crystal ball of what does energy prices do over the next handful of years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what do we know the contract length for Constellation when that expires?
I can go back and reconfirm that, but I believe that was a 4-year contract.
Okay.
So the school, I believe, is covered through, I think it was 2026. We can talk through that, but all of the supply contract that we based it on, the rate that's in that supply contract is what we use to extrapolate and provide the cash flow. That's the financial analysis of this.
Okay. Is it generally in the owner's best interest to try to buy the system off earlier than later?
Yeah, we would strongly encourage the school purchase this in year 6. What you'll see is the cash flows will dramatically increase from year 5 to 6. Basically, assuming the school would finance through some type of debt or bond issuance, the cost of capital is much cheaper than continuing to do the power service agreement from year 6 through 28. So that's a common thing that we encourage all our clients to do.
Okay.
So as a follow-up to that, Seth, then how does that, if we were to consider the buying it at year 6, what are we figuring on as far as the buyout price? 80% of the initial investment, 10% of the initial investment, because if that's where this is going to go, then what you're saying is we don't have any upfront costs for the first 5 years or 6 years, and then we buy it, and then we do have an upfront cost.
Yeah, but we have a payment during those first 6 years that we're making to them. So I think what he said is that payment then would go toward the bond that we would secure to purchase the system.
Yeah, so the structure, what you'd have is for the first 5 years, you'd be making a monthly payment. And again, if you wanted to buy it year 10 or 15, what you'll see is that buyout value will continue to decline, since this is an asset that does lose value over time. It's got a defined useful life. The purchase price in year 6 would be about, say, 70%, maybe 65% of what you could have bought it for day one. So what those payments are, obviously they'll cash flow because you're going to see the utility rate reduction. You're going to see the SREC income. So you'll be net flow positive the first 5 years. You can continue to do that for year 6, 7, and 8, and so forth. Or if you wanted to purchase it in year 6, typically what we model in the cash flow and what's part of this presentation is we assumed a 3% interest rate for the tax exempt entity financing in a 30-year term. Obviously, if interest rates continue to increase, we may want to bump that up to like a 4.5% number, but that's at least what we have in the cash flow that generated the numbers.
So I think again, if we get a little further down the road, we're going to want to see that analysis as well.
Sure.
Anything more, Christy, before I go to somebody else?
I think he answered my questions. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I was going to ask a little bit more too about the buyout. What percentage of your clients do purchase the system at year 6?
Yeah, we've had a couple. So of the 250 projects, not all of them are done in this manner, where We have built for some of the for-profit entities, but let's say we've done 50 nonprofits, similar to the school district or county, townships, churches. We've had 2 of them buy out to date. Some of those are, again, the company's only been around since 2010. So the total number of projects that are 6 years old is not that many compared to the 50. It might be like 15 to 20, but that is something we pitch to everybody that it would make financial sense to purchase. As part of the power service agreement, what you'll see is there's 2 exhibits in the back of the contract. One would be the monthly payment you'd be making as part of this 28-year agreement. And then the second one is going to be the buyout values. So it'd be a predetermined price that we would agree upon before contract execution. And you know what you'd pay like in year 6, 10, 15, and so forth. So there's no hidden cost as what the purchase price would be.
It makes me a little bit weary of you wanting us to buy it. That sort of throws up a red flag to me that, you want to get rid of it, for some reason.
Sure.
Other than benefiting us.
Yeah. So in our client's best interest, cash flow, it does make a lot of sense. And there is an Excel file we can walk through maybe at a different meeting, but you will see the cash flow is significantly better. So we are an accounting and finance driven company. So we always want to make sure we're doing what's right for our clients, similar to our former lives before we got into the solar industry. But as far as just, I completely respect the concern you may have there. The only thing that would really change is 2 things once you purchase it. One is you would be responsible for the financing, basically to whatever you're going to, if it's cash or if it's a bond issuance to purchase it. Then the other one would be who's responsible for the system's operations and maintenance. We would be responsible until you purchase the system. Once you take title, you would now have that responsibility. Typically, we alleviate customers' concerns with that by signing a service contract where we would continue to maintenance it annually and monitor the system for its performance.
Okay.
So Seth, the tax credits that you guys, or investment credits, the federal government, are those just good for the first 5 years of the investment?
Let me make sure I'm answering your question. So we would be able to monetize as the owner and the investor in the system. We'd be able to monetize that in year 1, but the tax recapture issue, we just have to hold it for at least 5 years. As soon as we get past 5 years, there's no obstacle on us from a financial perspective. So
where I'm going with this is kind of to answer Terry's question is, it seems to me that what you're doing is you're taking the tax credits and then you're trying to sell them right away to loosen up the cash to go out and do another deal with.
So it is a year 1. Fully transparently, what we recommend for like anybody that owns projects, like if it's a construction company that's putting solar on their roof, it makes a lot of sense to put a solar project on your roof that will handle this year's tax liability, and then basically do it again next year and again the following year. That's all part of the financial attractiveness of it. No different than like a real estate financing where you get to depreciate your project, except in that case, it's typically over like a 29.5-year life, whereas this is a year 1 item.
Okay, we're going to go around the room and then virtually see if there's any questions. Cinda?
I texted you and you didn't answer me. Did you say anything, Seth, about any kind of what the situation would be during the summer when our schools are closed? We're not using that much electricity. Do we sell that electricity to Penelec, or is that part of the, what would you call them, RECs?
SRECs.
SRECs.
They would that would correlate a little bit with the SRECs. Basically, you generate more SRECs as your system produces more power. But when you compare the solar production versus the annual or monthly usage, that's a very common thing that the school usage tends to be the lowest when solar is actually the highest. I think Christy actually had that in her analysis for the Ike Elementary solar project or location. But that would all be done through this term called net metering. So basically, that's a contract between the school district and Penelec. So when you overproduce electricity for that month, basically Penelec is going to give you a credit that would apply against future months. And if over the course of a year you still have excess left over, they will actually pay you cash for the excess production.
Okay. And then, and I don't know that you'll be able to answer this. I did think about the ESCO project, and every year we get credit for how much money they've saved us. And is this going to in any way affect those numbers, affect that?
A constellation.
Yeah.
It probably would be good to connect us with your ESCO company, but typically I would say most schools do have an ESCO project either in the works or already operational. I wouldn't see that as an issue that we would be stepping on each other's toes, but we could certainly talk if you think that's a worthwhile exercise.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
Seth, what's, if we want to move forward with this, what's our next steps?
Yeah, so what I would encourage is if you want to give me kind of like, it doesn't have to be final, but if you want to give me a location, like I can go back and run the bus garage roof mount and ground mount, put that up as another option. If we can agree on kind of these are the 5 or the 7 solar arrays we'd like to have considered, if we could do that all virtually, that would be great. And then once we kind of have that as our finalized scope, we can actually do a site visit. We'll go visit each of those in the same day, and then we'll do a final. This is what the pricing would look like based off that site visit.
We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. That's pretty easy. What else do we have to do?
After that, then it would just be. I mean, again, it probably would be worthwhile to walk through. Whoever wants to sit down on that Excel cash flow, it's pretty in depth, but once, assuming everybody's clean on that, it would be jumping into the contract, reviewing that and then getting that executed. That would be the next couple steps after those.
So we could slough that off on Julie.
Yeah, she's not here tonight.
Yeah, Julie and Jared would love to go over that Excel spreadsheet with you. Nothing would make them happier.
Anything else, Tom?
Do you have a typical agreement that you've used in the other districts?
Sure. Yeah, I can send it'd just be a template with no numbers.
Yeah,
I can certainly,
I'd like to, because then we could have Mr.
Ron.
Raypack, we could have Ron take a look at it and see if there's any flags that he sees. I think we take a motion to the board to pursue this, to continue to pursue it, let people know that we're looking at it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're not committing to it, but we're moving it forward.
And hopefully you're familiar with the speed at what school districts move at, Seth. We got to go through some more steps. So our
Yep.
solicitor will need to look at it. We'll have to go to our ESCO
We can have this
contract,
wrapped up by June 1st.
and then we'll have to go to, the board a few times probably, and then site visits and that sort of thing. Cindy, you said you had another question.
Yeah, I noticed on your picture of Eisenhower, you have a picture of the old Eisenhower with the modulars there and everything. We're gonna build a new big
Yeah.
multi-purpose
We
gym
didn't
there.
send that to them yet.
So we're gonna have,
Yeah.
you did or you
Well,
didn't?
no,
We did not.
Eisenhower and the junior high would be a phase 2.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. But my question is, if you've got a design of what you would do at Eisenhower, would it be any problem to add more to that?
Well, we'll have to
If you-
figure out those open areas in each of the wings. They may have gable roofs on them. We're not sure yet.
Right,
So,
yeah,
so until we
Have
Gable
decide
roofs
some more of
20
that.
degrees facing south.
Right.
okay, all right. They answered my question or made me shut up, so.
Okay, I'll
thank
go
you.
online. Sue, you still online?
Yes, I am, and I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay,
Tammy's there.
Tammy?
I have no questions either.
Anybody else on there, Tom?
Elijah has his hand raised, does he?
Yes, he does.
Go ahead, Elijah.
Seth, good presentation. I just had a question about the mounting in the ballast system. The question is, how much additional weight are you adding there? Have you had to deal with any restructuring because of that? And would you, especially when we're potentially looking at a new roof on the renovated area, and certainly new in the additions, would you look at any other system that is actually mounted down to the structure and has the penetrations that you would need to flash?
Yeah, so it really depends on the type of roof. Most of the time, school districts are going to be like your EPDM or TPO rubber roofs that are flat. Those type of installs, they typically will add somewhere around 4 to 5 pounds per square foot, which is actually very, very light. Most of Pennsylvania actually has a 30 PSF snow load. So in comparison to snow, it's actually extremely light. So as part of this package, basically, again, with no cost to the school, we would actually supply a structural engineer to come out and make a site visit of each of these as well, and basically determine how much additional weight, the snow plus additional weight that it could be supported. Typically, I would say most buildings are able to support somewhere between 6 and 12 pounds per square foot. So generally, that's not an issue. Every once in a while, there is a little bit. I'd say 1 out of 100 has a little bit of a structural issue, but that's pretty rare. But we would supply that to make sure everything's capiche.
Okay, that's good to hear. I was expecting a lot more than that. My only other question was, in terms of the longevity of the roof, have you seen anything? Have you seen any increases or any companies willing to offer a longer warranty because they're not getting, theoretically, you're getting all of the UV, the direct UV anyway, for the areas that you're covering.
Yeah. So one thing I want to touch base on that is these solar panels are going to be bifacial solar panels. So what that means is the front side and the back side look identical. So if you go by like an older system, you'll see it's a white sheet on the backing, versus now basically any panel that's been made in the last, like, say 3 to 5 years, the white sheet that's on the back is now the glassy blue look to it. So what that means is so most of the solar production is going to come off the front, the direct side, but you will get some reflectivity off of the underlying roof. So if you do, like, let's say the junior highs, we're going to consider as a phase 2, and you replace the roof, we would strongly encourage a white roof because that will improve the reflectivity and the production in the system. As far as the roof warranty pieces, I would say the most common tend to be 20 or 25-year warranties. You can do extended roof warranties of, like, say 30 years. Obviously, the longer the roof warranty, the better. But another piece that will happen with adding solar is it typically will extend the useful life of the roof. Because as you were mentioning, Elijah, the solar is basically taking a lot of the brunt of the snow, the rain, the sun, and it allows the roof to be extended for another 3 to 5 years probably.
Anything else, Elijah?
And Christie,
That's all I have. Thank you.
Christy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I came up with another question. I guess I was surprised I saw either in your report or in your spreadsheet that you used solar panels with a 30-year warranty and inverters with a 20-year warranty. Is that a pretty common warranty length now for what you're using?
Yeah, the panel warranties, 30 years is the standard. That's pretty common, I would say, especially for these bifacial panels. The inverter warranties, they can be as short as 5 years or 10 for the standard. But
Okay.
there are ways to purchase an extended warranty, which is what we would recommend. So the cash flow we presented, it assumed a 20-year extended warranty. So
Okay,
typically, with like a 40-year useful life, you probably have to make one inverter replacement.
Okay. Yeah, we've seen estimates of every 10 years. So that was why I was wondering. It seemed a bit long for the inverters.
Okay. Walter, we'll go to you next, and then we'll open it up.
I've asked my questions. I'm good for now.
Anybody else in the room here have a question?
Yes.
Good.
From a facilities point of view, if we have roof leaks on our current roofs that you would mount these panels above, how labor intensive is that to get to those areas to make those repairs?
Sure. So as part of the installation, we would work with whoever the roof warranty company is. A lot of them tend to be this, it's usually the same 3 or 4, but we would work closely with the roof warranty company to make sure the warranty maintains as if solar was never there. What most of them typically ask the property owner to do is sign what's called like an overburden warranty rider or overburden warranty form. So what that basically says is if there is a roof leak, let's say a couple years after the system, they're still responsible for the roof warranty, but the school is responsible for having a couple of those panels removed so that way they can access that slit in the roof basically. That's pretty easy. What we'd recommend is you let us know. We can come out, turn the power off, and then basically disconnect or remove like say 4 to 8 panels to create like a 10 by 10 sort of area that someone can easily access.
Anything else? All right, well, thanks, Seth.
Before we move on from that, the other thing is that those panels are 3 foot to 8 foot off the roof. So you
That would be for the ground mounts.
and how far are they off the roof for the ballasted system?
Yeah, so for the roof mounts, they're going to probably be about say 6 to 9 inches high on the front end, and then about say 15 or 18 inches high on the back end.
Okay, so Cheney can crawl under them if he wants to, but you can come out with the panels.
Hey, Tom.
He's
doesn't-
thin. He's thin.
He doesn't want to.
Okay. So removing panels to get to the leaks is
Yeah, you can get your hands underneath of them. I mean, the panels are also going to be spaced by about 20 inches, row 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so forth. So you can easily get your hands under there. It's it's workable, even if you didn't have to remove a panel.
But you also could see under them, so you could
Correct.
locate.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions online?
Is there, just a quick question, is there any liability on our part for damages for any of those ground mounted panels? I mean, you're suggesting putting those, like for instance, Ben Franklin School, they're surrounding a softball, baseball field there. Can they withstand damage from that or any type of vandalism?
Yeah, so the ground mounts would be typically fenced in with like a 6-foot high chain link fence. As far as most of the time, the only stuff that will actually typically cause impact to a panel is we would ask the school to mow the grass typically once a year, maybe twice. We do a low no-mow grass to keep the grass from going up over that 3-foot height that the panel is. Typically, the only thing we really have happen that will break a panel here and there is if a lawnmower throws a rock. So I would say they're pretty durable. Like hail doesn't cause any damage to them. But we typically will lose like 1 or 2 panels kind of maybe across a year or a couple years. So they're pretty durable. I mean, for something of this size, we're talking about a couple thousand solar panels. You may see a few break, but it won't be very many.
Is that our responsibility to put the fence around those, or is that part of your project as well?
Fencing was included as part of the pricing, so that would be on us.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Seth. It was a good presentation, a lot of good questions and answers. I agree with Tom. We'll probably move this on to, a motion to be able to pursue it further. And then we'll, look for that sample template contract from you to run by our solicitor. And Julia, who is the chair of our audit and finance committee, her and our business manager can look at the nuts and bolts of the spreadsheet some more. So, and then we'll continue to do some more research on our end too. So
That sounds good. Thank you for the time, everybody. Appreciate it.
all right. You had said before too that we can contact those other school districts. Our solicitor probably reach out to their solicitor, Jared too, with the business managers too. So
Sure. Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yep. You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All righty. We're right on schedule. Wow. That was good. It's a very interesting topic, but it's a very interesting proposal that's being, evaluated. And Tom, you're the one that found this.
Stumbled onto this.
Yeah, stumbled onto this through
I mean, I'm excited that we could even consider generating 100% of our power from the sun. And one of the
an
advantages,
electrical power. We want to make,
Electrical
yeah.
yeah, electrical panel.
When they say that, you
But-
think all of our
Yeah.
energy.
But that makes our ability to do geothermal and some other things that rely on electricity much more reasonable. The thing I also like about it is that we have a fixed cost moving forward with this electrical cost. So we have some idea of what our electrical bill will be in 10 years. And right now they can double and double again. And your friends from Reggie are going to see to that.
Hey, Jared, I mean, we get Tesla stations put up at,
No.
Go to Sheets.
Martin's has
Did
one.
somebody
Yeah.
buy an electric car around here?
Yeah.
Martin's has one.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to number 1 on the agenda. And Elijah, I know you have to get out of here by 7, so we got to try to work through this. So we're going to talk about, since we're renovating Eisenhower, what type of an HVAC system we want to install in the new school. So Elijah, you going to start this out, or Eric, or who's?
Yeah, I think Eric put together, I asked Eric to put together a number of different HVAC solutions for the building to be presented. And he's pulled together 5 options with pros and cons, as well as much data as we can gather from a sort of back of napkin. It's better than back of napkin, but preliminary level as we're deciding how to move forward. And we hope that by the end of this meeting, if we're not able to select a system, that we're able to start significantly narrowing down how we want to move forward, because this is going to be critical to our timeline and keeping on schedule with the project, especially in regards to MEP. So, Eric, without going any further, do you want to go through and present the options that you have?
Sure. Did the report get passed around, or is this a first time for seeing it?
A couple of us have it because we met the other day, but not everybody has it. But
Okay.
you can just talk at a higher level. Don't go into a lot of detail, with the options. And, then we can follow up if there's any questions at the end.
Okay. Well, the first option was packaged rooftop units and VAV boxes. This was the lowest cost option. It provides cooling for the school.
When you say lowest cost, you're talking lowest initial construction cost, correct?
Yes, lowest first cost. That's correct. It uses natural gas for the heating system, and the maintenance is pretty simple. And this is common HVAC equipment. Another pro is it has active dehumidification control. Estimated first cost on that was about $2.9 million, and the HVAC energy cost per year was about $30,000 per year. Option 2 was rooftop air handlers, remote condensing units. Yes.
Eric, may I ask a question? Estimated HVAC energy cost for option 1, is that electric and natural gas?
That's
The other
correct.
combined?
That's
Okay.
correct. It's a combined number. Yeah, all the energy costs presented that I'll say are combined costs.
Okay, thank you.
The spreadsheet at the end of the report that I issued actually breaks it out between gas and electric, but the numbers I have here are combined.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So option 2 was rooftop air handling units with remote condensers and VAV boxes. Energy-wise, this is a very similar option to option 1. It's a little bit more expensive at $3.1 million. It provides cooling, natural gas for the heating. It's also very simple as far as maintenance concerns, and it does provide active dehumidification control. The reason we presented this option is we thought that the school may have to alternate bid air conditioning, which this option would allow. But based on our last meeting, it seems like the district's in favor of just going full air conditioning. Okay, so option 3.
On option 2, what were your annual costs?
Oh, I'm sorry. Almost the same. $30,474 a year. So it's almost identical to option 1.
Our discussion with Eric on Friday was that we felt the board would not build this building without air conditioning. And if the board would build that, then we could then some of these other things are taken consideration. But if we're going to build it with air conditioning, then having an option of taking the air conditioning out is not useful.
That would be correct. Yeah, I would agree. Option 3 was rooftop air handling units with a chiller for air conditioning. This option provides cooling from the school. It does provide good dehumidification for the school. The estimated first cost is a little bit more at $3.4 million. The energy costs are reduced to a little over $29,000 a year. My personal opinion is the school at 60,000 square feet is a little small for a central station chiller. But there is an energy impact, so we decided to put that option on the table. Option 4 was unit ventilators with a chiller. I don't recommend unit ventilators just because they're noisy in the classroom. They're energy inefficient. But the reason we put this option on the table was there's little to no duct work above the ceiling, so you would have higher ceiling heights especially your corridors and your classrooms. The estimated first cost is about $3.4 million, so it's about the same as the rooftop air handlers. And the energy costs this option are the most. They're at $30,600 per year.
Eric, I think before you go on, it should be mentioned that the ductwork in your other options, in your first 3 options, will be down around 8 foot, I think you said, in the corridors.
In the corridors, yeah, especially down the addition wing. The structure heights in the addition wing are very low, so we would have to lower ceilings in the corridors. That's correct.
In the existing construction.
Yes, that's correct. The last option was geothermal. In this option, each classroom will get a water source heat pump, and there'd be a geothermal well field back where the asphalt currently is behind the school. We've estimated about 55 wells if we drilled about 500 feet deep. Tom, if we wanted to go less to 250 foot depth, we'd have to double the amount of those wells. So the pro of this option is the least overall carbon footprint. My personal opinion is these are a lot more maintenance than options 1 through 4. Well, I'd say options 1 through 3. There's just a lot more pieces of equipment to deal with, compressors above the roof. Also putting compressors in the classrooms does present a concern for noise. And this system does not have active dehumidification control. And what I mean by that is in any air conditioning system, dehumidification is a byproduct of air conditioning, but with water source heat pumps, you can't actively go into a dehumidification mode. So if you're air conditioning, you will dehumidify. But if you're in like those milder climates, 70, 75 degrees, and it's humid outside, you can't really dehumidify without subcooling this. So that's a concern. Estimated first cost is about $3.8 million with this option. And the estimated energy costs per year are the lowest of the 5 options at $28,928 a year.
Why is it so high?
The energy costs.
Yeah.
Well, the reason you're not seeing great energy costs with geothermal is the fact that the school is going to be closed during the summertime. So, when you have a geothermal system that doesn't replenish the well field in the summertime, when the school needs cooling, you have an unbalanced load. So that's kind of the nature of K through 12 schools, and that's why I typically don't see geothermal being used in K through 12 applications. If geothermal works really well if you have a nice cubed building, a 4 or 5 story office building with exterior exposure and a lot of interior exposure, and then it runs year round. When you have a building like that, you can see some pretty significant savings with geothermal because a lot of times you're not running compressors, you're moving heat and cooling, back in and out. But with the K through 12 school being off in the summer, and the fact that it's like a single story L-shaped building with mostly exterior exposure, most of the time this building is going to be in all heating or all cooling mode. There's not much opportunity to transfer but heat and cool between different exposures. Does that make sense?
Eric,
No, actually it doesn't, Eric. I understand, that you miss some of the advantage of the cooling in the summertime, but it seems to me that for some reason you're still pumping a lot of energy into this system when the whole idea is to capture the energy of the groundwater. Regardless of whether you're heating it or cooling it.
No, I mean, well, so the ground is really just a heat sink, right? So the only energy that you're really saving is condenser fan energy, which you don't have, which you would have in a traditional system. But you have to remember that there are compressors in all of these water source heat pumps.
So Eric, so there may be my concept of how, the conceptually how a geothermal system works. I was always under the understanding that the water temperature is 55 degrees the year round. And if I want a 70-degree building, I've only got to add 15 degrees of water or 15 degrees of temperature in the wintertime to get it to 70 degrees. So versus taking the outside air in that might be 20 or 30 degrees and having to raise that, the amount of energy, and I'm equating energy to dollars here, okay, to get that 20 or 30 degree temperature up to the 70 for the classroom. Isn't that basically how the thing is supposed to work?
Not really. So the ground temperature will maintain around 48 to 58 degrees. But your water temperature in that geothermal loop, it could drop as low as well. It can drop below freezing, and sometimes we have to put glycol in the systems, and it will get as high as about 135. That water temperature fluctuates throughout the year. Okay,
yeah, but the water temperature coming out of the ground is going to fluctuate throughout the year?
Absolutely. And what happens here is if you had that perfectly cubed building, okay, and if you had that building that operated year round, you would have a lot less fluctuation in that water. And when you have a lot less fluctuation in that water, you do see the benefits there. So what happens is those compressors throughout the building, they run less. But with an unbalanced building like a school, those temperatures are going to fluctuate very low and very high. And when that happens, the compressors and the water source heat pumps is what's going to use all of your energy. And that just has to do with it's an unbalanced load.
Let me ask this, Eric. You familiar with the Winburn Elementary School we talked about Friday?
I mean, we talked about it. I'm not familiar with the building, no.
Well, Jared and Cheney and I spoke with the building maintenance supervisor there, plus one of the maintenance crew workers. And they love the system in their elementary school. And they said it's L-shaped. The one wing's 2 stories, the other one's, I think, 1 story. And then there's some other, rooms off of that single story.
Jerry,
Do you know how many square feet it is, Cheney? We think it holds about 600 students, so it's equivalent to this school that we're talking about that we're renovating.
Jerry, just a point of clarification. They have a geothermal system, is that correct?
It was installed in 1997. It was one of the first big buildings in the state of Pennsylvania. The first couple years, they had a little bit of trouble with it because Trane, Trane, could not supply the right size units. Once those units were replaced, they've had very minimal problems with the system in those, 28 years or whatever, 26 years or whatever. They said it holds the building at a constant temperature 12 months out of the year. They have energy recovery units in each of the rooms. I do not believe they have compressors in each of the rooms. It sounded like they had a series of heat pumps throughout the building, but I don't. They mentioned the energy recovery units in each of the rooms. They've had to rebuild, a couple of the pumps a couple times over those, 20 some years, but that's common in any water, pumping system. The well depths are 165 feet. There are some, he gave me the number of, there's 2 well fields. 160 or no. 170 in the one well field and 90 in the other well field. I asked them, I said, if you had to do this again, what would you do? And they both responded at the same time and said geothermal. And the one fella has quite a bit of experience with HVAC systems. Prior to him being the maintenance supervisor, he worked for some HVAC, either company or whatever, but they couldn't say anything bad about it. I mean, they welcomed us to call them again or to come visit. Trying to think of what else they said. The one guy just installed a system in his daughter's house, actually, and I know that's 12-month usage, but and then he said everything's redundant. He said if a pump goes down, or a energy recovery unit or whatever, it's no problem. And then I asked him about the air exchange and the humidity, and he said they test all their whole buildings twice or every other year, and they're always above good. They've never had a mold problem or anything. It was a good conversation, it really was. Jared, Cheney, you have anything?
No, I think you covered pretty much everything we talked
And
about.
Cheney, our supervisor here, maintenance supervisor, he had worked at the Winburn schools years ago, so he has some familiarity with it. So.
Yeah, and that was actually my building before I came out here.
Oh, in our
school, and like you said, it is the constant temperature all year round, and it was always comfortable, whether it was winter or summer. It was always comfortable in here.
Yeah, our one principal here was a principal at Winburn.
That sounds like a good experience. Will it work? Yeah, that's not been my experience with it. It will work if you guys want geothermal. I said we'll do geothermal, but I'm just giving you my experience. We ran the energy numbers. That's what we came up with. We ran the first cost. That's what we came up with. But obviously, the decision's in the school district's hands.
They haven't lost any wells either. I asked them that.
So the energy models that you are using on this, Eric, or are they, I don't quite know how to say this correctly, but you know, if I'm selling roofing material and I'm trying to push steel roofing, I'm going to use a different energy model for an asphalt roof than a guy who's selling asphalt roofing. Okay, just to make my product look better. So my question is, on the energy models that you were using, were they ones developed by the, you know, people who produce the geothermal equipment, or were they energy models based on one of the competitors' type products?
Well, we do our own in-house energy models, and Christy Kramer, who's off the call now, she was the one that did it. The numbers, she gave me the numbers, I passed them through. She has, 20 plus years experience in energy modeling. So I'm very confident with her numbers. We use the electric bills that the school provided, and we, as far as gas costs, we had to use Pennsylvania averages because we didn't receive those costs. But she does a lot of energy modeling, and those are the numbers she got, and I passed them through. And I did the first cost, which I feel confident about, and the numbers shook out where they shook out. So yeah, we don't use any vendor information. We do all our modeling in house.
Thank you.
Have you ever heard of a designing it, not putting a compressor in every room, just putting them spacing bigger ones maybe throughout the loop system?
You can do that. That gets a little tricky though, because you have to have some form of thermostatic temperature control per classroom. So zoning that gets a little tricky. You don't want to use too much reheat. If you do that, then you're using your boiler system, and you're not necessarily taking advantage of the whole geothermal system. But the schools that I have, the buildings that I have seen, typically, the smaller room size water source heat pumps are scattered throughout the building. And then, areas like the gymnasium or the cafeteria would have a large, roof unit heat pump or indoor air handling unit type heat pump.
All right. I'll go virtually first. Sue, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Tammy?
No questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Thomas?
Eric, according to your calculation of your tonnage, you're indicating about 140 tons of air conditioning needed for the new Ike in the geothermal model. Is that true? Your well field at 55 wells at 500 feet and 2.5 tons of a 500-foot well.
Yeah, I come out to about 120 tons of cooling. I came out to about 150 tons of heating. So I sized the well field based on the greater of the two, which was the 150 tons of heating.
Have you ever done a building loop system?
You mean like boiler cooling tower type?
No, a heat pump loop system in the building.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I mean, you're just talking about a water loop to going from heat pump to heat pump?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the system that I've always put in. I've never done single wells for each unit. We've always building.
So we have a building loop. Do you do a building loop and do a heat exchanger between the well field and the loop?
Typically not. No, typically not.
Okay, if you, that's the diagram that I sent you. If you do that, you have the ability of running the well loop, and you have the ability of adding heat artificially to the loop, which allows you to make up for the balanced load, because you can put a small boiler in to take care of the extreme temperatures.
Oh, sure.
Which allows you to reduce the number of wells substantially. Have you also taken into account diversity of load on your well field?
Well, sure.
Well, you haven't if you have 120 tons of wells, and that's 500 That's a 500 square feet per well, per ton. This building is going to be, have a pretty diverse load in it. We're not going to have 400 people in the gymnasium and 200 people eating lunch and 200 people in the band room at the same time. We don't have that many kids.
Well, that's true. We will take diversity in our calculations.
But on the well field, that would be critical, that you're able to reduce that well field down to if you take the diversity of the load diversity into account, and you're able to do a building wide loop, you're able to add a small boiler so you can size the wells for the air conditioning component.
Don't we already have boilers?
Well, we already have some decent boilers, so we wouldn't have to rebuy those.
Well, Tom, we will do that when we run loads on the building, and if we can bring it down to 120 tons, we'll bring it down to 120 tons.
60 tons. I'm done talking.
Okay, we can get into those details if we choose this option.
Yeah, the problem is I don't want to see this thing taken off the table.
Right.
Just because it's coming in at this point and this engineer at the highest cost and not a significant savings in the energy. I disagree. I disagree with it. There's a way to do this.
Yeah. In my conversation with Winber today, really, changed my direction on what I was thinking. And I'm going to say, Eric, if we do choose option 5, geothermal, we'll set up a separate meeting and work out these details. So, Cinda?
Just to kind of go back to Walter's question, Eric, when you're talking about the estimated HVAC energy costs per year, when you were talking about all of the other ones, that was how much the electricity and the gas were going to cost. But then when we got to the geothermal, you started talking about how much we were saving. So is this $28,928, that's how much it will cost us in electricity to do the geothermal system for a year. And that takes into consideration that we would not be running 3 months in the summer, that the usage would be a lot less in the summer. So it ends up that all of these utilities are basically in the $30,000 a year range for the heating and air conditioning.
That is correct. Yeah, they're around 30,000. When I said savings, I meant the difference between 30,000 and 28,900.
Okay, well that's really kind of minimal. Yeah. Okay. All right. I just wanted to be certain that we weren't talking energy costs on 4 options and then all of a sudden energy savings on the last option.
Yeah, if you look at the very last page of that report, you'll see all that in a spreadsheet.
Okay.
And all the numbers are kind of broken out. They're broken out with gas and electric, and then there's a cost difference there. So the spreadsheet kind of explains it a little bit better.
Okay. So in a perfect world, if we did the geothermal and we had a cube building and it was open and running 16 hours a day and 365 days a year, we would get a lot of bang for our buck. But you'd see the differential between the energy savings of option 1, say, and option 5 get farther apart, and your savings would go up. Okay, but the way it is now, geothermal the energy costs would be about the same. They would be, for all intents and purposes, they're the same, and that's figuring in all of the buildings not being open 12 months a year. So.
Well, this study was just for Eisenhower. This is I did not analyze all of it.
Okay. Well, all right. Okay, but every option was analyzed with the parameters that were not open all year long.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm done.
Walter.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I still can't believe that the water coming out of the ground is not a consistent 55 degrees. I just can't accept water going back into the ground. I understand could vary from freezing up to 100 and some degrees. I get that part of it. What I don't understand is why the water coming out of the ground.
Well, I think, wait, let me try to clarify maybe. The ground temperature, however many feet deep, remains the same until you start drawing that heat out of that well. Then that well could cool down below 55 degrees. Is that, Eric, what you're saying?
Yeah, and a lot of that happens over time. But the ground is a big heat sink, so you're putting heat in and you're taking heat out throughout the year. And if you put in more heat than you take out, eventually the ground temperature does change, and then likewise the water does change. Now that it happens over time,
How long does it take to meet equilibrium again? Like over the weekend, things aren't running as much. At night, things aren't running as much. Do those well fields recover, in hours or days, or is it longer than that?
It's longer than that. So what you end up doing, you'll end up seeing a slow temperature rise or temperature fall over time. So most people will monitor their water temperatures on a monthly or yearly basis and track whether it's going up or down. And when you do load calculations in a geothermal simulation, you can get a good guesstimate on that, and usually that lends you to either needing a boiler or cooling tower. In this neck of the woods, we would need a boiler because your well temperatures will eventually drop over time.
Does that help, Walter?
I guess. I understand conceptually what you're saying. The only thing that I would say, Terry, is that there's an area, then you've got to have a defined area around that well that you're pulling
You have
the
to
heat
space
from or
your
putting
wells.
the heat back down in.
You have to properly space your
Okay.
wells.
So then if you had additional wells, then I would think that would, where you didn't always pump from, where you rotated the well, I'm sure you could set up some sort of a manifold to in fact do that. Yeah, I will move on. I'll shut up, Tom.
Anything else?
No, I'm just.
Anybody else have any questions about this? Anybody online? Raise your hand. If not, Tom, you're part of this committee. I'm going to ask, are we moving forward with what option?
You said Tom and you're looking at me.
I'm in the other room.
Do you want Tom to go first or do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
I am completely comfortable with geothermal. I am hesitant. I want to make sure that they feel that they can do it. I don't want to have monkey wrenches thrown in the machinery because it's not the choice of system that CJL is really pushing. I would like to make sure that we're willing to talk to other engineers and, discuss this before we get something thrown at us that's, an impossible number for an impossible project. So I want people to be willing to work with us.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I would think CJL would want to make this a poster project. But,
Yeah.
Tom?
I'm certain that geothermal is the way to go. That I'm confident in geothermal. I've used it all over the state in multiple types of projects. I've not had the problem with the well field that the CGLs had. We've used supplemental boilers, which we have, and we can design a much smaller well field than being proposed, which reduces the cost and the complexity. I like the system because of the simplicity of the machinery and the flexibility of that machinery. So it's possible to do a lot of different controls, and we will have rooms that face south in the summer. In the winter time, they're getting complete sunlight that may need air conditioning, while the room on the north side needs heat. Okay, that's very difficult to do because we're talking just you have to kind of gang things together. I dislike the rooftop units. They're not efficient. They are hard to maintain, and they have a short lifespan.
Yeah, and we're going to increase the insulation on the roof depth, and we're going to put sunshades on the south and west sides. Walter.
I'm good with let's put it this way. I want to take a much deeper look at this and get a better understanding of how this thing actually works, or what options we have to make the geothermal work. So it definitely has to stay on the table.
Yeah, I'd like to visit Windber.
If there's an additional system, I'm okay with looking at it, but I absolutely think we need to take a deep, dark dive into the geothermal.
And we already have gas boilers in the building that aren't that old that can be the supplemental gas sources. Tammy? Hello, Tammy.
Sorry, had to find the mute button. I'm all for listening to the experts, so that clears nothing up for you, I know.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, Sue, your turn.
Yeah, I too need further education on this, so I think it's worth exploring, but I definitely need, just for my own understanding, because I'm like Tammy, I have to defer to the experts on this one.
So Eric, I guess I don't know if Elijah's still on or not. Probably not.
Yeah, I think Elijah left.
Yeah, which is okay. Well, it looks like we're going to move forward with option 5. I know you were going to put together a cost estimate. Never mind. That's for East Pike.
I'm sorry. A cost estimate?
Yeah, that was
sorry,
for
there's
East
a lot of
Pike.
noise in the background.
That was for East Pike. If we change what we're doing back there at the geothermal, you were going to put some.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to go with geothermal, is that the decision? I mean, that's the way we'll proceed. We'll move forward with it.
Yeah, but we want you to be on board with it. And
I'm on board. All I'm trying to do is give you my opinions and my past experience. If you guys want to do that, I'm working for you, and we'll make it happen. The system will work. I never said it won't work. I'm just trying to list pros and cons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on board.
Okay, we'll work through the details of the design, again, so we're getting what we want. So, all right, let's move on to number 2, I guess it is, for the the East Pike HVAC system.
Smiling. It looks better when the superintendent's smiling. Okay.
That was making me nervous.
So I guess, Eric, I could start out the conversation. At our meeting last Friday, we went back and looked at the old office space at East Pike. We did determine we could fit the ductwork mostly inside the building, so that took away our concern with having all the ductwork on the roof, or most of the ductwork, or a lot of it. So that I guess we have 2 options to discuss tonight. Is that existing VAV box rooftop unit system with most of the ductwork inside the ceiling off the roof. And then the other thing we were going to throw out on the table is the geothermal in the old office space.
Yes, that's my recollection of it.
I think we're trying to track down one of our committee members here.
So we might have to skip over this until he gets back, or we will have to skip over this.
Yeah, let's keep going, Terry.
All right. Sorry, you have to hang on a little bit, Eric.
That's okay.
Do we want to go to the Ben Franklin next?
Yeah, are you okay with that, Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Yes. See how much you learned tonight?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So much.
You can go home and tell
My-
people about it.
Mine's going to be so basic, I'm kind of embarrassed.
Yeah. Kelly has a nice presentation that she put together for the outdoor classroom at Ben Franklin. Cinda Brode and I had visited over there a week ago Friday,
Mhm.
I think it was. And then I was over there on Monday. So I'd asked Jared and then Kelly to put together a little presentation for the committee so we all know what's going on and what's coming up. So yeah,
And it's all Kelly. I had nothing to do with it.
you put it on the agenda.
I put it on the agenda. Kelly put the presentation together.
I thought, oh my goodness, you have something too, because you're going to make me sound real bad. Okay, Randy, thank you so much for helping. We should just go ahead to the next slide. I will talk quickly. This is just an overview, bird's eye view of what the space is potentially going to look like. So just to remind you what it is going to be developed into. Go ahead.
For orientations, where's the pavilion?
So the pavilion is, if you're in the building, in hallway A, it would be, if you look outside,
Across from
seven.
her
Ben
office,
Franklin
like
Road
across
side
from
of
her office, across that
Okay.
hallway and out the window.
Okay, I'm good.
okay. All right, we can go to the next slide, Randy. So what we've done so far, we have the whiteboard. That was our very first feature, and it was added last year. We were happy that it made it through the winter, and when we opened it up, there's no warping. Everything is so usable. So we're going to go ahead and stain that in the weeks ahead. We had a work weekend planned for this weekend, but we were worried about the weather, and so we canceled. But we're going to get that stained, and that's the very first thing that Mr. Moran built. You can go ahead on to the next one, Randy. The pavilion was built in fall of 21, right before the temperatures dropped. It's really just a beautiful structure. Again, we do have to stain that. That will get done in the upcoming weeks. We also have 4 beautiful picnic tables that are under it right now, and those were donated by 3rd grade teacher Shannon Redinger. Her dad came and put them together for us, so we're excited to get kids out there and eating under the pavilion. Go ahead, Randy. This is just unbelievable. Last Friday, there was nothing, and Sean contacted the contractor, and that's Bob Cochran, and just kind of wondered when he was going to come, and he said, well, Sean, I could be there on Monday. And so sure enough, they came on Monday, and he started working on the amphitheater. It's really beautiful. Staff, students alike were really excited just to see the trucks come with the gravel, and then the cement was poured. So it was a pretty exciting week at Ben Franklin. And if you'd like to stop by, the structure is completely cemented, and the next part of it is going to be bricking it. You can go ahead, Randy. Oh, and I'm sorry, just let me go back to that. We do have to thank the Kiwanis Club. Sean and I went to their 100th anniversary celebration dinner on Friday night, and they did give us another $10,000 installation to be put towards the amphitheater. And we're just really, really grateful for their generous support. So what's next? We're working with a contractor to obtain a plan for some excess water and drainage. Mr. Kerr did come over to Ben Franklin, and we just kind of talked about some of the various concerns that we have, especially with the recent heavy rain. There were quite a few, there's a lot of excess water. So what to do about that? And it's been recommended that we get a grate that is above the current grate that we have now, and just kind of raise the land a little bit so that it slopes down away from the middle and out around the natural flow of the building. And so we're kind of working through that right now. And we do have a contractor that is giving us some different ideas for what we can do. Cheney was also there just to kind of take a look at things as well, and I appreciate his support. The paving of the pathway should begin this summer. That's going to be done by East American Incorporated, and we're just really looking forward to having pathways that are going to be accessible for all of our children and anybody that visits as well. You can go ahead, Randy. There's going to be a volunteer work day on Saturday, June 4th. At that point in time, we're going to be staining the pavilion, the whiteboard, the benches, some little odds and ends are also going to be completed. And Randy, you can go ahead to 2 more slides. I'll just keep going if that's okay. There's a few things that are still ahead. There's the installation of a bridge, and that's being designed and constructed by the ITCT. An engraved brick fundraiser for the amphitheater is in the works right now. We are working with a company that is going to be able to give us a really great deal if we can sell 100 bricks. So we're kind of excited for that. And that fundraiser, papers went home today in children's backpacks, and then we'll have a digital copy of the fundraiser to go home as well. And I actually linked it so you could take a look at that if you like. The butterfly garden, we're hoping to work with Earthcraft, who was kind enough to give us the drawings of the proposed space to do that. So the butterfly garden, any additional landscaping that will need to be done, they will help us with, we're hopeful. And we also had Mr. Genscher from White Township come over, and he gave us some really great idea for wildflowers that we can be planting. Seeds that will actually suck up a lot of the moisture can be planted, and that will be very helpful as we move ahead as well. The pathways are going to be completed. I already mentioned that. We also have some benches that were designed by ITCT, and those will need to be installed as well. And then the sensory and water play area is going to be the next piece that we try to develop. So that's kind of the next little pieces that we have going on. And Randy, if you're still there, that's about it.
Sit Rob,
There's
check on him.
There's a
And then
few
Yeah, I'm here. It's moving for me, but apparently it's that Rob just said it's
Oh,
not
okay.
moving for you guys up there.
Okay,
So I think everybody at home got to see it, so the recording should be okay.
sounds good.
No.
I can I can show you on my phone if you prefer.
It didn't move on the Chromebook that I'm looking at, Randy.
Yeah, it's moving for me down here, and it's broadcasting out over it. So
Well, you're the only one that counts.
You know what? It was just some clip art. You saw the photographs, so
I started laughing, grinning when you said the sensory water play area.
Yes.
I can imagine a whole classroom of soaked children.
no. No, don't worry. No.
I just took away all their.
Yeah, my nurse Lindy Stossel would probably string me up by the flagpole. So no, we will not do that.
Boy, sensory water play is stomping through the puddles. Is that what we're getting at, Cinda?
So water.
yeah, because I with 2 screens, I actually have what I'm. That was weird.
Now it moved.
Now I
Randy.
see it.
You're good, Randy. Thank you so much.
You fixed it.
I think they
And then we can continue to update you, but those would be the next agenda items that we're hopeful to get done in the weeks ahead. Anybody that wants to join us for the workday is welcome. We'll be there all morning. And I think that Summit Church is also going to be coming over to help us as well, which is very kind. They've been very good to us on many different occasions. And so the only other thing that I did have linked, like I said, was the brick fundraiser that is going to start happening, and we're really hopeful that we get a good turnout for that. We're also having a carnival at Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin and Eisenhower PTA has gone together. There's going to be a lot of fun events on Friday night. You're all welcome to join us there as well. We're going to be having a fundraiser again for the Ben Franklin Outdoor Learning Space that will start that night. The top 3 staff members that get donations will get a pie in the face on or around the last day of school. So I'm anticipating being covered in coconut cream.
Is that what it is, or they do shaving cream? What do they do?
I hope it's not shaving cream. I think it's just whipped cream. That's what's happened in the past. So it'll probably just be a big whipped cream pie.
I think the superintendent was looking at volunteering his.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bruker. You're the best.
What is that? The fourth?
The pie in the face is going to be on or around the last day of school.
Oh yeah, I'm here for that.
Yeah.
I'll give it.
Yeah.
Watch yourself, Mr. President. All due respect, if you want me to give a directive to every other administrator in this room, we'll all.
Yes, that's right. Anybody that would like to come to the dunk tank, Mr. Heinrich has volunteered to get dunked, and we have a line of teachers already. So join us. It's
I
gonna
can
be a
wear,
good
I can wear a
time.
Flyers jersey, get people really old.
Yeah, there you go. More like the Rangers.
Well done, Kelly. Well done.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions for Kelly? The one thing I was going to throw out to the committee and the board and stuff is, there's some things that are going on that we didn't know about, which is, I'm not, criticizing other than to keep us all informed. Do we want to know when other contracts are being bid that are below the dollar amount? Because there's one, and I mentioned this to Kelly when I was over there. There's a telephone pole, electric pole right in the middle of that
Main
thing
power.
with 3 transformers around it. And we just have to be cognitive that at some point, the power company is going to have to get in there and service things and, and maybe in a hurry. It could be at night or whatever. So,
So
we just are trying to watch out for some things like that.
So is that, does that pole need to remain in that exact location?
Well, that's the thing I was going to throw out. Did
Or does it
anybody
need to- or
contact
could it
Penelec
be-
and see if that thing could be moved? Could it go underground?
It can,
I mean, it can be
the answer
moved,
is
yes.
that yes, okay, it can be moved at cost.
Right.
And a ground mounted transformer installed and then conduit put in place.
Right.
So, but it's a ditch and money. But I thought it was insane that it was put there in 1964 when it
It
was
is,
put there.
yeah,
It's
it
a-
is insane.
It's a
It's
3-phase
terrible.
power pole in the middle of the dang school.
And it's close to, what I call close to the building.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you have a picture. Any of
Well,
the pictures
somebody
shows
saved
that.
$18 not putting it underground when they did the building, and it should have gone underground then.
I mean, we are worried that, and I've talked to Cheney about that. We're worried about it being a climbing hazard and, a swinging
There's a
hazard.
guy wire on
Honestly,
it too.
sure.
It's gonna have to
So,
be shielded or
so
protected.
we're going to, Mr. Genter said that we would not need a permit to put up a fence as long as it's under 6 feet. So we're considering a few options, and then, landscaping around it. But yeah, it
Barbarian.
But I'd say too, it'd be worth contacting Penelec and asking them as their donation to this.
Is it
outdoor
Penelec
class-
or REA?
Contact them and see if they would be at all interested in moving it or putting it underground or.
I'll take some more pies in the face if we need to raise more funds as well.
Well, I'd try Penelec first. You never know. They
Yeah,
may.
don't resort to that, right?
And
So-
use the leverage. It just could be part of their donation to the outdoor classroom.
Would I contact?
Well, Jared or Cheney or somebody.
Cheney can help you with that. That's okay.
Yeah.
Cheney, do you mind helping out with that? Thank you.
Look into it.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay, we'll go back to number 2, the East Pike HVAC system, since Mr. Harley made it back to our meeting.
I had to take a walk.
I started to explain that we're down to 2 options there with, the rooftop units with the VAV boxes and put most of the ductwork above the ceiling, not on the roof. Or the geothermal option back in the old office space of East Pike. Now, you had thrown out on Friday when we met about putting individual closets pretty much in all the rooms and individual heat pumps in each of the closets for each of the rooms.
Yeah.
So my two questions, which I had on Friday, was, does the air exchange happen? And what about the dehumidification with what you're proposing here?
So there'd be a closet like that in the corner of the classroom, like that corner there. And it'd have a water-based heat pump in it that takes that just like a regular heat pump, except it uses water as its medium instead of air. And then that would run off of a well that's outside, right outside the classroom. So we have the whole wall over there. So you have a hole in the ground, geothermal water coming in.
Could those units be put right behind the building on a concrete slab? If we didn't want to take up floor space in the
That's
rooms.
correct. I would prefer indoor units because they last better and they're more efficient. So you could certainly build a closet outside the classrooms if you wanted to do it that way. I did a sketch with the closets inside. You could do the same thing as little bump outs. A little more expensive, but not, it's not going to sink the ship. The closets would be about 3.5 by 5 feet wide. So, I mean, it's 15 square feet out of the closet, out of the classroom. So you'd have you'd have a water-based heat pump, and it would make hot and cold air, push it up through the top and to about a 12-inch duct into each room. You'd have local control in each classroom of the temperature and of the mode. So you could do heating or cooling depending on what was needed in that particular room at that particular time. Most efficient system is one that's off. So if there's no load on that system's off. I'd marry that to a energy recovery unit, which would pull outside air in, wash it across the radiator, and push it into the return duct of the heat pump unit. Those energy recovery units are 90% effective. So it basically tempers the air coming in. So you're not taking 5-degree air, bringing it in the room and dropping it. You're taking 5-degree air and washing it over 70-degree air and recapturing some of that temperature. And the heat pump would raise that temperature to put it into the room or lower the temperature depending on the mode that it's in. I would also look at putting a small coil in from that we would slave off the boiler into that duct system, which we have the boiler, the water's right there, the circulation's right there. I wouldn't do this normally, but I would consider doing it here because we already have this material, the piping's already there. You could do a dehumidification system. I don't think it's really necessary. I don't think it's not one of the big critical pieces of this puzzle. Is the dehumidification. There's some natural dehumidification in air conditioning, but when we're just taking outside air and mixing it in, when it's 85% humidity outside, it's going to be 85% inside. We could certainly put a dehumidification component in. I find them not to be long-term functioning operations. So that's I guess that's the system, and each room would basically have this system.
Now, a couple questions I sent to you.
How many rooms are you talking about, Tom?
There'd be 1, 2,
4
3, 4, 5. There'd be 4 classrooms, and then the copy space in the office.
5 classrooms.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I'm sorry, 5
Yeah.
classrooms, and then
In the copy room and the outside services
and outside service
room. And then there's also a couple little rooms where we're doing away with the janitorial closet to have an entrance into those 2 little rooms on that side. Those rooms 148 and 150, I think, right? With Jericho.
I don't see the numbers there. I can't read them here.
Yeah, but a couple questions I had was, you had 1 unit, 1 closet, 1 unit serving the copy room and the outside services room. There's 2 different needs there.
Right.
how's that gonna function?
You're gonna pick a middle ground. Not
Middle,
ideal.
yeah.
Now, you could flip this, and this would be a good place for your cassette system. To do a small cassette system.
There you go. You could do,
Just in those two rooms.
right.
Because those two rooms are different, but it doesn't make sense to do one of these heat pump units for each one.
Right. Well, if we're flipping those ones, does it make sense to do the cassettes in all?
I don't think so. I don't think the cassettes are as effective as the geothermal systems would be, as the water-based heat pumps would be, and the ability to move fresh air in. I know I can dump that fresh air into the return air, and then I can modify it in the heat pump unit.
What about in Cheney, Jared, you guys have those two little rooms, like where we're going in through that janitorial closet, and then is there two rooms there that are in between the two classrooms?
There's a storage closet.
Yeah,
And
and then
then
there's
what we're
a-
proposing to be an actual small group instruction room.
Yeah. It's here. This will be a doorway. This is a janitorial closet right here now. And that's gonna go into these, I think, two rooms here that are next to this classroom.
Just into the one that,
Just into the one, the
front
store.
room. The other one's access. That's
From the
storage-
outside.
That's the storage for that classroom.
Okay. I see the door now, I think, yeah. It's on there, Tony.
No, I'm trying to see what they were doing mechanically for it.
I don't think they were. They didn't show the ductwork extended into there. That's the other building, this building. Come back. These rooms here. Right, they were stopping here. Yeah.
Again, that may be a good location for your cassettes.
Right, that's what I was thinking. For that classroom and those two.
Well, not the classroom, no, just do a small cassette system for those two rooms.
Well,
So-
he's saying only one of the rooms, because the one's a storage room,
So
so he
you-
doesn't need anything.
You still
So
need,
Use that one classroom.
it's a storage room, but it's an
That
outside wall.
doorway, eliminating that custodial closet only gives you access to that front room.
Right, but I'm saying is that back room need conditioned?
No, that's that's just a storage space, not an educational space.
So it's just the larger room next to that classroom.
So you've got 6 classrooms that you're, plus a couple of support rooms, is that what I'm hearing?
5 classrooms.
We have
A coffee room.
5 4-size classrooms. And then there's a outside service office and a copy room where the old conference room was.
There's a
And then-
bathroom
Okay.
in the one classroom. And then there's another room that's gonna
Okay.
be usable. It's a smaller room
All right,
that goes, is access where there's a janitorial closet now.
that answers my question, Terry. I was just trying to get some scope of
Yeah, how many?
how big.
So I guess the question is, do we continue down the path of the rooftop unit with the ductwork above the ceiling, not on the roof, or change to this geothermal option? And I guess one thought I had driving out here, a couple thoughts. One is eventually, my opinion is we're gonna put air conditioning in this building, in the school. Could be 10 years from now, it could be whatever, some future date. So, because we are, say we go the geothermal route, we start drilling wells back there to put in a system. Can we then tap onto that well field already, adding wells, of course, to, continue to put air conditioning in the rest of the building?
So Terry, you kind of bring up kind of a backdoor way of what my concern would be. You essentially would have then two separate systems operating in this building. You'd have the main system that exists now, and then you'd have this subsystem that is only operating on a portion of the building. Okay, and I'm okay with it, even if we are operating two separate systems. But I guess the question to Cheney, from an operational point of view, is how much does that actually complicate your life or the lives of your maintenance guys if it's two different systems?
What's gonna be
I
a
think it's an
different
unfair
system.
question because it doesn't matter. It's going to be different systems.
Yeah.
We've decided to air condition these classrooms because of need, because of the population that we're planning on putting in it. So that's a lot different than a unit ventilator that's heating, which is what the rest of the school is, except for this wing and the administration wing of the school. So there's multiple systems already in place.
And if we're going to do geothermal at Eisenhower, the maintenance people are going to have to get used to working on it and become acquainted with it anyhow. So it won't be, just learning geothermal for 6 rooms.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to the geothermal per se.
No,
I'm
but I
looking
mean,
at
as
it
far
more
as the
from
different
the
type of system.
theoretical. Does it then complicate things to have the two different systems operating in the same building? That's the question that I was posing. And I understand Tom's argument where it may not, but that's also the question I wanted to ask Shane. So you're kind of shrugging your shoulders, so I guess it's not a big deal.
We'll learn to work on it. We have to learn it.
No, it's going to be an
You need
air
to
conditioned
continue to learn
system.
on this
It's going to be an
job.
air conditioned system.
There's always, every time we buy a new piece of equipment, we have to learn how to work on it. That's always going to be there, not a concern.
And so then, I guess the question that I would ask, and I think, Terry, you've got the right idea, is if you did do this system, putting the wells in such a location that would be easy to continue to drill more wells and add on to it probably would make a lot of sense.
And I guess to take that one step further, instead of doing the individual units, I know it's a less first cost. If we're gonna, at some point in the future, extend the air conditioning down the wings, do we just put a normal geothermal system, and I'll call it now? And then we're not putting closets either in the rooms or outside the building, or,
The infrastructure for a normal system is substantially more. But we got to do the pumps and circulation. We have to be prepared to do 55 wells, according to CJL. We're doing 5,000 feet of this building. What's this building? 75,000 feet. It's hard to do a little bit of the building. It's set up for the rest of it.
Yeah.
55 wells was Eisenhower, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm saying
Yeah.
Eisenhower compared to here.
Okay, all right.
This may
That's okay.
Yeah. The only thing I'm really stumbling about here is putting those closets in, because if we do add air conditioning to the rest of the building, it'd be silly to have those closets there.
Well, it's not really, because half the space that the closets are in are already useless space. They've already been blocked out because of the way the cabinets work together. So in some of those classrooms, there's a 2x3, a 6 foot already not being utilized. So I'm not utilizing 12 feet. The classrooms are still good size. And in most of these rooms, they fit into the floor of the room. I'm not hung up on the 12 square feet.
Well, my comment was for the future. You know, if we do air conditioning the whole building, it'd be nice if those closets weren't there. They wouldn't be needed if you had a total building system.
Well, they'd still be needed if you're going to do individual rooms.
You would envision doing the rest of the building the same way?
I'm telling you, Terry, this is the way to do that, Eisenhower too. Okay. That the efficiencies of this system are tremendous. And the reliability is tremendous.
Yeah, that's a lot of units.
Yeah, but it's a lot of units. It's a lot of units. One of the advantages, though, is that when you lose the unit, you don't lose the whole thing. We lose that rooftop unit, that whole wing goes down, and that's what happens on those big units. You lose the compressor, and you're down until he gets the motor rebuilt in 10 days for the whole space. These are small compressors. He could have 6 compressors sitting in his shop that he could flip out in an hour. It's all heat pump technology, and he's used to dealing with it. But the advantage is that you can do a lot of repetitive. So you don't have a bunch of different machines. You can repeat the same machine over and over again. So his components that break are very are extraordinary.
Yeah, and I asked you this, but I'll ask again. Maybe Eric would have something. There's no way to put one unit per 2 classrooms and have a zone.
Yeah, and you can do that. System. You can do that, and you can do that with the VAV valve. I don't like to do that. The cost of the VAV valve isn't much higher than the separate machine. And every 1,000 feet, we have another machine. Okay. And you run into some things where you run into like this copier office space. Okay, yeah, maybe you do the VAV. You do one of these guys that do the adjustment. I dislike these mechanical adjustments that you can't see. I think they work really well on paper, but poor Cheney has to figure out which one's not working today.
Cinda.
One thing, when you were talking, you're talking about doing the heat pumps for the part that we're renovating. And then in the future, doing air conditioning. If in your future vision, were you going to keep heating with the boiler and just add air conditioning, or were you talking about, and I think what Tom's talking is, yes, we'd eventually switch everything to heat pumps, but is that what you were thinking?
I didn't go that far.
Okay.
Cinda, from my perspective, to answer that question, I think depends on if we do set up Eisenhower with the total geothermal and we wind up with the same reaction that Wimber had or whatever that other school district was, then I think it becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay, you just begin to replicate that as you renovate the buildings.
But that's a total loop system for that whole Eisenhower school, which is different than what Tom just said of putting an individual heat pump in every room.
No, I get that. But her question was.
Let me clarify this. The loop is a pipe running around, and you hang off heat pumps off of that loop.
Right.
And you can hang off big heat pumps or little heat pumps.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
But I'm thinking big heat pumps, so
The
you
bigger
don't
the
have
heat
one
pump,
in each room.
The bigger heat pump, and you can do what you just said.
Right.
Okay, and you can have a duct system like we have at East Pike on the current plans. Okay, it gets very complicated. The air can't tell. Okay, so you could put a 15-ton heat pump unit on it, and then you could run the ductwork like we're running, like it's been drawn. Okay, that's what I'm trying to avoid, is that complexity in the ductwork. Okay, and in that ductwork, there's the complexity of controls. You can do what you just said, but you also can do it with using smaller machines. Okay.
So where I was going with this, Terry, was next building we're gonna really touch big time has got to be Ben Franklin.
Right.
Okay, and there you're gonna be looking at some sort of a major renovation.
Yeah.
And if you are, then you're putting in that, particularly if we have the good luck at Eisenhower that we expect, then you're gonna go ahead and put in that loop system. Okay, because you're tearing the building basically down.
Right.
Okay, and putting it back. It might be another 20 years before we do that to this building.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But I think at some point in time, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, so you make a good point. So we worry about this old office space for now.
Correct.
That's an argument, and I agree with that. And you're
And
right, Ben
we just-
Franklin's gonna be, my opinion, next.
And if this has got to be what, to get that space air conditioned or whatever, okay, then so be it. We'll just deal with that problem. My question was answered on the complexity. Okay, we just operate the two different systems and life is good. Okay, so I think that's the real.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would not want to do, what I wouldn't want to, whatever we do as far as the wells and so on, not have those interfere where you've got to either ignore them totally or tear them all out or do whatever whenever that next time comes. There's some way to be smart about that part of it. I think that makes a certain amount of sense prepared for that future.
Yeah. Somebody raise their hand, Jerry?
No, Sue left the meeting. She apologized.
Yeah.
She's
She
had it.
left.
Yeah, she and Mike had a little bit of fun there, right?
They could. I
Well,
can't.
we lost
Anybody-
Jimmy, we lost
HVAC
Mike,
system.
we lost Josie, we lost-
Anybody have any questions on this? Raise your hand online. Anybody here?
One question I would have is how loud the system.
That's a good one.
The advantage of the system is we can size the ductwork so you don't have air noise. And we can lift the air, we can lift the return air and insulate that. And with the insulation machine, you have to be careful. Okay, but you know how we have unit ventilators in the classrooms?
Sure.
Okay, that's not that.
No.
Okay, there's a wall there, there's a solid door there, there's a machine that is significantly quieter than the machine that Cheney was dealing with in '97. So, but you have to be smart about it. Okay, you can't do tight. You have to do good sized ductwork. You have to do the right size ductwork so you're gonna get this noise here. Okay, that's all air noise moving. That's crazy stupid. So we have to be careful. Okay, it's certainly doable.
Good question. Thank you. Anything else? Eric, what's your comment?
I mean, comments are the same as our last discussion at Eisenhower. You know, if this is the way you guys want to go, this is what we'll do. I just need to know because we're, you know, this is definitely going to impact the schedule of the project. And
Well, the availability of this equipment will probably be
No, this is a lot more available.
available versus the rooftop unit.
I don't know that, to be honest. I'd have to contact vendors to find that out.
I have contacted vendors, and that's what I'm being told. The rooftop units are difficult to find right now.
Well, that much is true. I just don't know about the heat pumps. But we'll find out.
Yeah.
So is this the way you guys want to go then?
Well, it sounds like it. My concern is where the closets will be, and Tom and I can finger wrestle or whatever about that, and we'll go back and look at things. And, you know,
Terry, I also think that we probably should set that up as a motion for the board as well to pursue the heat pump geothermal for that.
we have to, because we already had a motion to do what we're doing back there.
Okay.
Well, to change. revise or modify or whatever that.
Fine.
Are we good?
So there won't be closets at Eisenhower, but there will be closets here.
Not necessarily. Okay, there will be closets here. We have
Okay.
to work on Eisenhower. The advantage of closets is that Mr. Cheney can touch the machines. Okay,
That he can what?
He can touch the machines. When they're up above the ceiling tiles, they're difficult to service. And things like furnace, things like filters don't get fixed. So when it's behind a door like over there, the things can get serviced easily. That's the big advantage of having them in closets.
VAV boxes are up above the ceiling, so you
Yeah.
have access.
Well, or you have a machine on the roof,
Yes.
but all your filtration's somewhere else.
Okay,
Terry.
Eric, anything else?
So it sounds like I should get Eli a proposal for geothermal in the those offices in the back, and he'll pass that on through, and you guys can make a decision at your next meeting.
Yeah, and I'd suggest maybe we have a phone call before you put that proposal together, just so the scope of work matches what we're thinking.
Okay. I'm in on Thursday and Friday if you want to have a call. I'm out the next 2 days.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for your time, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Thanks. Bye. Okay. We want to go to number 3, the potential uses for Horace Mann after Eisenhower is open for students. So we've already brainstormed district-specific uses. Then we did, what was the second thing called? Public.
I think you put that
Private.
one off, didn't you?
No, the one that we have left now. Yeah, okay. The one, there was a second one.
Was it just educational,
Educational uses are
not directly
Yeah,
with
I
the
think the
district?
first one was just what?
District
Use it for, and then the
uses.
second
Yeah.
was and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
education.
So the last category we were going to look at was this joint public and or private partnerships to support the academic and educational needs of the community as a whole. Public use by any entity. So I don't forget this. There was a fellow that sent an email. I'm not sure who he sent it to, but I don't want to forget he's the Dr. Jim Doherty, or Doherty, however he pronounces it. He's the director of the Northern Appalachian Folk Festival. And he would like us to consider, let's see, we would propose using that facility as a regional cultural center modeled after the ICTC, but focusing on the arts and humanities instead. The Northern Appalachian Cultural Center. We hope to approach the Appalachian Regional Commission as well as private sources for possible funding of the endeavor. Please inform us on the procedures necessary for submitting a formal proposal to your committee. I guess that's the
We have
first.
like our own performing arts high school or something, if they're doing it on the, like ICTC, it's going to have a high school with different programs within it, and these deal with the performing arts?
I don't
It
think
might
that's what
just
he's
be-
talking
That's,
about.
yeah, that's not what I got.
Greater Latrobe has a performing arts center, and they have different art that's shown by the students. They have plays there.
Theater, yeah.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah,
gone there
dance.
before, yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing
So
maybe.
is that what that he's talking about?
He doesn't get into any more detail than whatever.
I sense, okay, I think that's that same guy that puts on
He puts on that
festival,
Appalachian Music Festival.
okay, that they have here in September every year, the second week in September. Okay. And so what I gathered, based on what you read, Terry, was he was looking more for like a facility that people could go to, for the lack of a better expression, 24/7 to experience some of that Appalachian folk Okay, and whether it's a live performance or it's a static display, that would be,
And the his ICTC may be different than what you're thinking, is, yeah, possibility.
There's another one?
I was gonna say.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
He should tell us what that means then. You know, we
Yeah.
should have Tom there saying, what do those letters mean?
How about if you just invite him to whatever committee?
Well, right now, we're just brainstorming
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah,
You know,
and
that's-
if you can bring 6 other groups in, okay, that's what this is talking about.
Right,
so, along the brainstorming, Terry,
yes.
I understand that the county just bought another building out by the airport. Tom knows more about it than I do.
Not much.
Okay. My point is that I think that the county, the borough, IUP are all of those public use by any other entity. They should all be contacted at some point in time to see if they have any plans to acquire additional buildings for whatever purpose. I think the building they acquired here recently, the county did, was for storage primarily, but it may have been office and other things as well.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've personally become aware of is that there is absolutely no capacity for additional daycare in this town. Okay. And my daughter-in-law did some checking, since she has 3 kids still in diapers, for the possibility of daycare, at least during the summer months when we're busier. And she was getting quotes like $40 a day per kid, 5-day minimum, and 3 kids is like then $600.
And it's that much even if you don't go every day.
And
That saves your space.
well, the point is that unless you're in the upper crust in Indiana, you're going to be cheaper to stay home than you are going to go to work.
Yeah.
If you've got 2 or 3 kids.
Okay, your idea is daycare.
I'm sorry.
Let's keep going here.
Way to sum it up.
And water, it's been
It's
that
8
way
o'clock.
for a long time.
Yeah. Anything else?
I just became aware of it. No, go ahead.
Send it.
I still have all my same, I'm willing to have anything except an empty building.
Yeah.
So, and something with early childhood, daycare, something that Wade
Jared, you're
said
right.
at one
Amazing.
time. Something Wade said at one time, have all the organizations that deal with children all have a central location. I'm all for any of that.
Okay, Paul, anything new?
Hey, he's got something.
Mike wants-
Mr. Kirk, for the sake of the conversation, Jared, Justin, Rob, and myself met with the IU 28 to see about increasing the number of pre-K classrooms, if that's something they want to do, or we're a satellite service where kids from all Indiana County come to. They reached out to other superintendents. They're waiting to hear back from everyone. At this point, it doesn't seem like there's an interest. So we were exploring that, just bring it forward to see if that was something that come to fruition. So we're looking at as well from our end, seeing if there's anything that can happen with that.
Okay, Tammy, she's still on here? Yep.
Tammy's still there.
No. She's not.
Find the mute button, Tammy.
This is exactly why I don't do it from home. You guys call me out like that.
Tammy, you there? All right. Anybody else have any ideas for uses under this category or other?
The only other thing that I would suggest, and you're more familiar with it than anybody, is the Learning Lamp, which I think is based out of Johnstown and run by
Leah Spangler?
Leah Spangler. It is my understanding anecdotally that they acquired the use of a closed school building in the Connellsville area. I don't know whether they leased it. I don't know whether they purchased it. Okay, to expand that Learning Lamp program into Connellsville. So
Okay, so Learning Lamp is your idea.
yes. So
We
yes,
need-
all right, I'll shut up.
We need something for literacy, we need something for literacy where they could get additional reading interventions.
Is that what Learning Lamp does?
No. I mean, they do childcare, they do some tutoring, but
In
like
places,
even an adult like literacy like feature that we could help older students that are struggling with reading.
The only other thing we'll add, Justin and I, Robert and Jared got a meeting with IUs again about the idea of expanding the number of autistic rooms we have in the district. So it really doesn't take care of Horace Mann for the short term, but long term, if they need extra facilities, which it looks like they may, it's something we're just keeping back on the radar, see where this conversation goes. Now, again, there are some loopholes, there's some hurdles we have to address, but for now, those are some ongoing conversations we have in the district.
What about the classroom that is at, I believe it was Penn's Manor? It was an emotion support classroom but it was very fluid. The children could just go in for a little bit, reset, come back
It's no
out.
longer run by the IU. I think Penn Manor's taking that on themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but that would be something to consider as well.
Sure.
I would suggest that someone approaches New Story. They're at full capacity. And they have some of their other schools are in some of their other facilities are in old schools.
And as we discussed last time, Adelphi also had some early comments and we did a tour. So, I think we're down the road, but those are some viable options. We'll see when it comes to a little bit more
well,
fruition.
I think they need to put on the list because if we,
Yeah, and
I think that was on the educational list from last time.
Yeah.
Which?
Adelphi.
New Story in Adelphi.
Okay. But in order to move this forward, we need to start reaching out to these people.
Right.
And letting them know that
Yeah, we've had a conversation with New Story before.
Yeah.
So
do we have a category, or have we already done that, where we, like private use, like for a developer to make luxury apartments out of it, or?
Yeah, I think the problem with that is they won't do anything until you know the building's up. I mean, we can maybe look.
But I think
talk
we
to
need
Ron.
to develop that.
Sure.
That has to be on a list somewhere.
It's not uncommon. You see a lot of developers purchasing old schools and
Right.
doing that. So yeah, we can definitely.
So
There's not very many that do it.
So
Yeah.
So Terry, as you keep things moving, okay. The question that I have now is, this completes the brainstorming.
Well, I have one more thing to add to
Oh,
this.
okay.
And there's companies out there that market properties. I think after we itemize these lists and then do what you're gonna probably say is next meeting, we need to, look at these lists, scratch off ones, low hanging fruit that we can scratch off maybe, prioritize them, determine who you reach out to, who's gonna do that. But then there's also an avenue of where we could probably either hire this company that markets the property, or as a percentage of something, that's how they get their return or whatever, but they'll come in and fly it with a drone, they'll take all kinds of pictures, and, then that's distributed to all, or, interested parties.
So what I was going to suggest, Terry, was any of the outside agencies that we've suggested, either at this meeting or previous meetings, at least get an initial contact from us, okay, to see if they're, one of the ways to get rid of the low-hanging fruit would be, if you were to call the county up or send them a letter saying, hey, we haven't decided yet, but this is what we're thinking of. Are you at all interested in any buildings? And if you get a not no, but HE double hockey sticks no, then
scratch that one off.
That you can scratch that one off for sure.
I agree. That's
Okay, so I think Well, if I have to. But I think that would be a way to somewhat naturally cut that back.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can pursue maybe a little more seriously what's left over.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be some initial context so that they know in fact that we're looking at doing something.
Yeah.
Well,
And if they have an interest.
I think the letter can say the building will be vacant on
Yes, yeah.
2023 or.
Well, whatever.
I just said be careful or he's gonna say 5.
I know.
Okay, so next meeting, we'll have something on the agenda where we're, itemizing those lists.
I would offer that we could probably, on the first floor of that building, offer it to Dunkin' Donuts.
All right, we're moving on to capital reserve budget.
They can have a walk-up window where the office is, just.
See it now.
Yes, sir. Cheney and I met last week or the week before and tried to come up with a early proposal or draft of what we are considering or what asked the committee to consider as the 22-23 capital reserve budget. As you know, the capital reserve is the typical budget. We purchase a lot of the bigger items out of the district. Typically, when the board approves most of these items, it is something that administration can just go and take care of without having to come back for formal board approval. Some of these items, the East Pike roof, of course, is already well in the works of being approved and being worked on, but it is included on there just so that we have an idea of how much money is coming out of the budget next year, coming out of the capital reserve. Also attached on here is an estimate for 21-22, what projects have been completed, what projects could be in the works by the end of June, to give us an idea of where we'll be starting as a fund balance on 7/1 of 2022. So both of these are attached to the agenda tonight, but we reviewed in buildings and grounds, we review it as part of audit and finance, and then we approve it as part of the full budget which this year we would do on June 13th.
So a couple questions so far. Down toward the bottom, the East Pike rooftop HVAC units and the East Pike HVAC control system. Shouldn't those be planned projects? And shouldn't they be number one?
Yeah, we can move. I mean, probably won't happen until the summer of, I guess they may get started in June of 2023. We'd be bidding that work out hopefully in the fall to get started at some point next year. But yeah, we can move those up there.
You guys have any questions or comments on it?
The column that says planned projects, are those projects that are already approved and underway? I'm looking at the 22-23 budget.
Those are ones that you're planning to do.
Those were the projects. That was the budget that was approved for the current school year.
Okay, so everything that has a number in that column, we don't have to look at. We already looked at it.
You already looked at it, and if we didn't get it done this year,
it's because Cheney's slacking off again.
It was moved forward for next year.
So the ones that we're looking at then are the ones that are in the cost estimate, like auditorium lighting that we haven't looked at.
Yes, if it hasn't been formally approved, but between requests from staff across the district, Cheney, we've added some items on here that at least in the future need looked at.
Okay, so the auditorium lighting, the stadium ticket booths, stadium fence painting, senior high music room.
That's a proposal coming from the music staff at the senior high. There's a storage room back behind the one music room that they did a presentation probably last fall or spring, maybe probably almost a year ago, to make it kind of a vocal recording room. So there's some renovation that needs done. There's still, I think, some conversations that need to have as far as heating and ventilation that need to happen in that room that maybe make it a bigger item than they think it's gonna be, but, you know, it's something that we need to discuss further with buildings and grounds.
What's the fitness center?
It's something that some of the HP teachers, have asked for, possibly not renovating, but changing some of the use of that area up there, getting rid of some equipment that is reaching the end of its useful life. Maybe not necessarily replacing it with like equipment, but kind of making a different area for kind of more modern fitness type activities there.
Is that why it's $50,000? We're getting rid of equipment and buying other stuff?
They have some other, yeah. I mean, they have asked to come at some point and do a presentation to buildings and grounds as a proposal. Where I'm just kind of putting it on there as a holder.
No, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've seen some of these things.
Yep.
Yeah, we could go through these on another day.
Tom, I'm almost thinking that particularly something like the fitness center, if they're changing the program up there, and it's hard to believe that it's been there that long that they would want to consider that, whether it shouldn't go to your committee first to take a look at what they're programming that they're wanting to make. So at least we understand the academics of what.
Sure, and the same thing with the music room, but I think that's already come through once.
Yeah.
The music facility, I think, came through once.
Dr. Julianne Laird and Jason O'Leary had done a presentation.
On the music.
Yeah.
But did they do it, did the
No.
health and
The
phys ed folks?
HP hasn't been in yet.
No, they have not.
Okay, so sure, we can run them through, we can run them through academic and then jump them over to Terry.
Yeah.
The boilers, these boilers always show up.
Which
The
pool
junior
or
high
the
pool
domestic?
boiler and the domestic.
Both.
That was just added.
The pool boiler, yeah, was just something that Cheney and I discussed and put on there. Something that's going to need discussed, not probably next year, but in the near future here.
Okay, that's why it's a 2.
Yep.
In that far right column where there's numbers, those are ones that are being planned to do this fiscal year.
The far rights we've already authorized, so we can ignore those.
Right.
Okay, and we can just yell at Cheney for not getting them done.
Well, some of those may be new for next year, like
what?
The LGI seating has never really been put on there, but because of COVID and the high use of it for lunch and all that, the senior high LGI seating has taken a beating.
And
Unfortunately, they're unavailable.
surprise. Yeah, they were unavailable when they put that sucker together. That's the most uncomfortable seating.
I have a company working on a proposal for basically 3 different options for that space right now.
Okay, so that's one of those that came up this year, hasn't been seen by the board, but it also, we're gonna lose the LGI room if we don't replace the seat.
Some of the seating just isn't usable at this
It's a
point.
safety issue.
Yeah.
It's bottom line.
The last time I was in it, there were seats you couldn't sit in. And that was a couple of years ago. Is there anything else like that you snuck in on us?
Oh, can we do that?
Something from Ben Franklin or?
I'd like a washer dryer. Yeah,
Yeah, now's your chance.
I know, right?
Okay, anything else that
I'm actually not kidding.
Cheney or Jared, you want to add
Horseman roof.
to what the
What's the story on-
conversation?
Horseman roof, what's the story on that?
It's been a placeholder that we've had on here. I don't know the condition. Janie would.
Yeah, we did some repairs a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
didn't we?
and that's always been carried.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna replace it. So put a repair number on it and call it a job.
That was repaired a few years back.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 years ago, right?
We're not gonna replace it.
So Jared, the question then is the likelihood of us replacing that roof is getting smaller and smaller and smaller at this point. So what kind of a number do you need to give him based on what you anticipate future repairs would be? Okay, not necessarily tonight, but
And it can be an annual number. If it costs us $5,000 or $10,000 to keep that roof watertight, then we just put on a $10,000 number and call it a job. And I think we could delete the electrical upgrades. The $600,000 we've been carrying for the electrical upgrade. We're not gonna do that this week.
Unless we're gonna keep the building. Unless we're gonna keep the building.
Unless we're gonna keep the building.
Have you decided we're not keeping the building?
I've decided that I'm not gonna spend over $1 million on these two items in that building until we know what we're gonna do with it.
Well, then we don't take them off the list until we know what we're gonna do with it.
Well, we're not gonna use.
And we don't say that we're not gonna do it because we don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm okay
I
with
just-
leaving them on there, you know.
They're just a number on
There,
the table.
we could move them to number 3.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at the same time you say that, we still need a repair number for the roof.
Yes, and that could be it too.
And he'll move it up when he has to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. Band uniform. Do we have to do the band uniforms again?
They're almost 10 years old.
I
No,
love those band uniforms.
That was a brand new item when I first got here.
It was a
I've been
brand new
here
item
almost
when
10
it was
years.
like one of the first things I did, maybe my second, third year.
yeah,
It was a fight. Okay.
They're just a placeholder on here, just so that we know that because last time it was kind of a shock when they were placed on suddenly that they needed replaced. So that we're getting to almost 10 years old, we need to have a conversation at some point.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm fine with leaving him a 3. Okay, but I'm also, there's gotta be a different way to dress a band up than the way we're doing it.
I've also reached out to Jason O'Lear, who is, advisor for the band, to also put the band boosters on notice that, they may be asked to contribute something to them. If they need to start thinking about fundraising as a way to help, because that was one of the conversations the last time we replaced them, is that the band booster should be part of that discussion as well. It's not something we can throw at them,
Okay.
the year we're doing it.
What about the pool air handler? I thought we just discussed that like a year or 2 ago, and it was needing replaced or something. No?
That is of the same age as the boiler itself, and that's why I asked to have the boiler added, because their renovation.
Well, should the air handler then move up?
17 years,
Yeah, it's the same age as the roof.
and it has exceeded its life.
Should the air handler be moved up to a number 2?
They should
Next
be
to the
together.
boiler, yeah.
To me, they're one number.
Okay, what about the
They're one
remove
system.
the boiler exhaust stack at Ben Frank?
I love that stack. Just leave it alone. It doesn't cost us anything to leave it there.
Where is
We'll
it?
leave it at number 3.
It's this big giant thing. It's near the telephone pole.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we're doing that area and we're thinking about moving telephone poles, maybe we should just do that all at once.
Probably
Is
when
it-
we do
is
the
it
roof next.
Correct? Is it?
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
When you do the
It's solid
roof,
brick.
would be the time to do it.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, tearing down the.
All right,
Use it for the pavilion.
We
or
good,
for
Jared?
the
Yeah, I'll
amphitheater.
make those revisions. We'll talk about it again on Monday at Audit and Finance.
Okay. What are we
Send it
down
back
to here? Electrical panel testing. I think that was done in Horace Mann, so I think Shane's gonna give us a report on that. And then he was gonna look to get a proposal to test the rest of the electrical panels across the district.
We don't have a written report yet, and they've made a contact to them again today to not only to get that, but to get a proposal for what their suggested repairs and costs would be associated with that. Verbally, Dave spoke with them over the phone, and they did indicate that it was not good.
Horace Mann?
When they did the scans of the electrical panels, yes.
Okay.
Now that we know,
no.
we should probably act.
Or when they did those scans, Janie, and I know a little, because I've had to do them or have them done at my facility.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just simply because there's an aluminum wire that's loose and a screwdriver or a wrench, as the case may be, and it's tightened back up, and then you're golden. Other times it's something more serious. So my question is to them, is the heat source caused by a loose connection, or is it, and I know that's an individual reading, and each individual reading could have a different answer, or is it caused by the equipment being on the verge of failure or whatever the case may be.
Till we have
Yeah,
that written report, I don't know.
let's
that we
wait and
exactly
get the
know that.
report. and then-
Okay, but I think that's a question that needs to be answered.
Right,
Yeah, and that information should be in the written report.
Okay.
okay, moving on to number 8. Were you able to get a proposal yet for the rest of the district to scan?
I did not ask them about that yet because, we're still awaiting the information from this initial one, and
How long ago was that done? I mean, why is it taking so long?
I don't know, and that's why
Did we pay them yet?
they reach out.
I'd have to
Yeah.
double check.
Hopefully not, but
Yeah, the final report should be due before we pay it.
yeah. All right, so that'll come back. Last thing is the auctioning, or no, second to the last thing, auctioning of excess furniture and equipment.
This is the company, I reached out to a couple different companies about looking into the possibility of working with us to do this. This is the only company that got back to me. They are the company that we also used prior when we redid the tech ed department at the high school. They're the ones we worked with to auction off a lot of that old equipment at that time. In my opinion, that went very well at the time. But this is kind of their fee structure. I mean, and I do take it back. One other company got back to me. They will not come on site. We would have to take all pictures of everything and send it back to them for auctioning, which I just don't know that we have the time.
Forget it.
Yeah,
Forget it.
we can commit that type of time to it. This company here is, their kind of fee structure, but they would come on site and take pictures and inventory, everything that we wanted auction off. And then they are strictly online. It would strictly be an online auction. It isn't like we'd be planning a day to do live auctions here on site. So their proposal or their information is attached to the agenda as well. If the board wants to consider moving forward with that, or the committee.
Jerry, I'm certainly comfortable moving ahead. And I'm really tired of storing stuff that we're never going to use. And, I know Ben Franklin has these catacombs full of stuff.
Yeah, I think the conversation started with Eisenhower, but I think if they're going to come on site and look at what was left at Eisenhower before we try and move and store it, we might as well do it district wide. I know there's stuff down in maintenance garage that we need to get rid of.
You're trying to get rid of these storage containers too throughout the district that we're paying rent on.
Yeah, we've gotten rid of a good many of them so far.
Yeah.
We're still trying to get rid of some of the other stuff. So by the end of the school year,
Yes,
is our
last day of
plan
school.
to at least have the storage units gone.
I think we can move this to the board.
Yeah.
As a motion.
I do too.
Yep. And then we'll bring the plan with them is bring back a whole list of everything we want to get rid of for board approval prior to disposal.
Oh, and pictures.
Okay, the last agenda item, donation of infield mix.
What?
I have no idea what that is.
I'm gonna let Cheney talk because he's the one who wanted that.
We have a full pallet of bags of infilled mix that we've had.
Of dirt.
What's infield mix?
It's
Is that
it's
diamond dust?
material that's mixed in with the infilled mix.
The
to
baseball
create
field.
Oh, it's
The type of dirt that you need on a ball field,
I'm
basically.
trying to think of it.
It's not the drying agent.
No, it's a drying agent. It's a
It's an
it's a
infill.
supplement.
Yes,
Yeah.
kind of like you would till it in.
Yeah.
to the
And
garden.
we gonna donate that
We have a whole pallet of it.
to? You don't have
Now,
to.
now that we have the field over here, we don't use that anymore. We have no use for it.
Can we put it to the auction?
Well, you could, yeah, you could. You also could
Do they,
give it to White Township or YMCA.
do they use a White Township? I was gonna say maybe they would knock some of our cost of tennis courts off.
Actually, I
For
think
some infield mix.
I think it would be a really good thing to donate it to the township.
Offer
Okay.
to the township. And if they don't want it, then offer to the Y. 'Cause
Agreed.
I know the 3 softball fields I work on over there could use it. but the township should go first.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
One last thing on my end before we close the meeting. There was an editorial in the, Tom, you listening?
Yeah.
Okay. There was an editorial in the newspaper on Saturday, I believe it was, that was less than complimentary of the district. I believe Mike and I are going to meet with the editor on Wednesday and have coffee with him and a discussion.
He was here at our last meeting.
He was.
We understand.
He most certainly was.
Yeah, I don't know what he heard.
Yeah, I think we have the responsibility to have a fierce conversation, and we're going to do that.
Pleasantly.
Yes, with respect and dignity.
Take Rob.
So we just wanted to make sure that the board understood that we were going to meet with him and have this discussion.
Anything else for the good of the order? Tom, you sure you don't want to?
Yeah, I got a couple things real quick.
Yeah.
Note the time, Mr. Harley.
We'll go back and call. 3 hours. Thank you all.
No, it was too long. Harley's meeting for long.
Yeah.
Saying, Mr. Harley. Next time they tease us.